I love logo malfunctions.
Yes.
It's my favorite thing in the world. I love it more than anything in the world. Hello,
Let's try
everyone.
that again.
We got this. Here we go.
In case you
There
didn't
we
see
go.
it, welcome to All Caps.
Welcome to All Caps, everybody. Very first show. How you guys doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Oh, man. Well, everybody, this is the very first episode of All Caps Book Chat. And, Isaac and I were chatting for a while. We realized we have two things in common. More than two, but for sure two. We love books and we love hats. Next thing you know, we thought, let's do this together. Let's bring on some of our favorite authors and booktubers and just chat about the craft, have some fun together, play some games. It's going to be good.
Heck yeah.
And, here tonight we have David Badurina.
The rare, the legendary,
I don't know,
unique
but
last name, David Badurina.
I'm everywhere. I don't know if rare is quite it.
Author extraordinaire of Space Pew Pew, Caretaker. I mean, come on. Mirth Quake legend. It's a pleasure, man.
I don't know if it's legend yet, but we're getting there. Janky Submarine and Homemade Hot Air Balloon are getting into like the general lexicon and all that. So
good.
Yeah.
They're almost as viral a concept as Steve. So,
I don't know.
Which would Steve get on?
Ooh, well, I mean, I think we know the answer to that. Well,
yeah.
I think David and I know the answer to that.
Steve would probably just be on the ground arguing about the engineering and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would hope Steve would just go into the hot air balloon.
Yeah, I think Steve's a hot air balloon. I'm biased, but I'm putting him on the hot air balloon. The number of times I get messages on any given day saying, "Who is Steve?" It's not just comments, it's DMs. People like, I need to know.
DM.
My whole life is Steve at this point.
Feel the identity, you scoundrel.
Years ago, when I was doing video work, there was a soap company in our town that wanted YouTube videos. So he made a bunch of little funny skits, and my brother played a character in the videos that was kind of persnickety. He was a comedy role. And for months, they'd have people come to them in stores and shows and like, is that guy is he real on your YouTube? They thought he was a real dude. He was like doing a Dwight impersonation, and they thought he was real.
See, there you go. I like it.
Yeah, let's see who's here tonight. We've got people coming in from Facebook, YouTube, X. Thanks everyone who's joined so far. Look at this.
Rebecca never heard from.
Mike Molman first, of course.
Mike is first.
See some family.
Well done. You've won the race, I guess.
Yeah. And Mike, we're very proud of our countdown.
I was really digging the jazz vibe. It was nice. I was here.
My brother wrote that song, actually.
Really? Oh, yeah. Well, that was excellent. It might be my new ringtone.
I'm addicted, honestly. And we've got a full selection of music by these awesome brothers. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's production value for you. So yeah, thanks for everyone showing up. Look at this. Oh man, already overbooked.
Howdy, hi.
Yeah, who else we got here?
We got thousands.
Yeah, this is great. What a start.
I see at least one Bob Nog Cognog.
I figured one of those was going to make an appearance tonight. Yeah, for sure. Of course.
So
that's
good.
What's up, buddy? Good to see you. Confetti, man. I'm working on it. Inside thing. Don't worry about it. Yeah. That's good. I mean, and a lot of these people, like, this is what's awesome about just our social media circles in general, is because like a lot of these people connect with at conventions or anything else, and then you're following each other on the socials. They have a different circle of people. You start getting involved. Like everything just kind of crisscrosses. Before you know it, we're all interviewing one another. And that's kind of awesome too. So like, I just love seeing this kind of stuff grow and seeing people that I know in there, and people that are here from your stuff. Like that's just really cool. Makes my little indie heart beat a little faster.
We're just one big indie family.
We are. Right. Like in The Hills Have Eyes.
Absolutely.
Just like that.
Just like that.
I'm the guy with the big head in the chair.
My gosh. No, it's true though. I mean, we all rise together, and this, I think it's my favorite part of this community. For me, I started on X, met a bunch of authors, met some booktubers, realized there's this whole other universe out there of people doing this and supporting each other. And it's the only way you grow, especially as an indie author. And it's also a lot of fun. It's just a blast to learn from each other and support each other, you know?
Once you get past your own nonsense, absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to get all the stupid out.
You do.
Let everybody get all the stupid out.
Yeah.
See, that's why I started on X. I said, soon to be author, blah, 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 and just made a total fool of myself for a few months and then published. That's the secret.
Nice.
Get it out of your system before everyone knows you.
Right.
And then blame all your old shenanigans on Steve.
Here you are in 2025, just posting up like, have any of you seen the picture of that angry cat? Like, just how out of tune and out of touch can you get on there before you're trying it out and then you finally nail it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I love it, man. And especially Twitter's or jitter, whatever we want to call it. That's definitely home for me is, I know for you guys too, but like, that's definitely social media home,
Oh yeah.
I was saying before that, I'm branching out, especially nowadays that I have a few more visual things I can show off. I've been testing a little more on Instagram, and there's definitely a really strong community there. It's just it's too much for my brain visually, too much going on. And the comment, I like the writing of Twitter. I like text-based. I need my text. If it's hidden away in comments, you have to select each time. It's just not intuitive.
Yeah. No, not at all. Not at all.
And then there's, Threads and Blue Sky trying their best.
Nope. Yep. I don't do them. No, but for me, it's X. I'm on Facebook, but the way I always describe it is public restroom. Like I just kind of kick open the door, pee in there somewhere, and then leave. Yeah. It's because I just really don't like Meta in general or the way they run their socials. So I dread hitting the Instagram icon to get on there. It's different. Like sometimes I'll have posts or whatever that are scheduled to go out. I schedule them out to go onto TikTok and go on to Instagram. I don't have TikTok installed. I don't look at it. It just, the video goes there and I'm happy because I don't have to touch it. So it's all good.
I have
TikTok drives me crazy. It's always buzzing my phone for things that I don't need to
know.
Yeah,
I'm not into it.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
I have some author friends who I think out of, misplaced loyalty follow my author Facebook page, but the only reason I use Facebook, the only reason is just for my old high school and college and university friends and family. Yeah. It's so I go on there and say, hey, I'm doing this book thing, and they're like, oh, Tim's doing a thing, and none of them use X, so they have no idea. Yeah, you know what I mean?
That's so cute.
It's all the little head nods from friends. It's so good. And then I come here and I'm like, this is I'm having a party over here they don't know about. It's great.
But my mom, who is in her 80s and foreign, left a review for my debut novel, and it was I'm like, what did you like, Mom? You didn't even read it, but thanks. That was really nice of you to give me 3 stars. I appreciate it. Yeah,
that's a good honest review.
It's good.
Didn't read it, 3 stars. That's a great start.
I'm joking.
Oh man.
Well, let's get into that novel. What was your debut novel?
All right, so the debut was The Caretaker. That was the second ever thing that I had published. The first thing I had published was a large spread in a martial arts magazine. And so I was working with the editor named John Corcoran at Century Martial Arts, and he was the editor for Black Belt magazine for years and years and years. And so that was my first send to an editor who is in charge of something and, decides to do the and so on and so forth. So that was sort of the first professional writing taste, which was pretty awesome. And then I was working on one story that I just dropped when Caretaker started. And so, that was 2018. And then as soon as we crossed into 2019, I was just a few thousand words into it. And my brother passed away. And then the novel just took on a completely different life and everything else. But I love where it went. And it was therapy for me in a lot of ways. And it just turned out to be just a really awesome contemporary fantasy story. So I'll take it. Contemporary urban, whatever. It's that style, speculative fiction. So.
having read some of the now, so I've read some of it, a good chunk of it, of the initial, and then having read now the new epilogue,
Right.
5-part epilogue. I can attest to that style. And then I've read some of, and I think Isaac is ahead of me for Space Pew Pew.
Right.
So it's really funny talking to an author who clearly has some range. But
yeah, I mean, it's not even that's not even the nonfiction that I got published in November as well. So
fair.
like, yeah, I try to, I like to write whatever, as long as I'm a storyteller. Like, I don't care what the medium is, really. So,
well, tell us a bit about that. So like what I talk to a lot of authors, and I definitely I can probably limit myself to a small selection of inspirations for the style I have, and I'm still branching out for sure. So as someone who definitely can handle very unique, very different styles, what's been the inspiration behind that? Behind each of them uniquely, or just in general?
well,
Maybe there's
yeah, I mean, okay, so like there's a narrative through line. So to this whole thing, like for me, I just really like exploring. I like exploring psychologically how a character works, or how somebody works, and then throw the things at that character to either push it in one direction or pull it in another, based on all those things. So at my core, I just like character study. It doesn't matter what the genre is for it. To me, I really enjoy relationship dynamics between friends, between foes, between relationships, partnerships and all those kinds of things. So I'd say for anything that I write, that is woven in. There is some kind of a psychological, I have to get past something, or I have to do something, et cetera, to get in there. In terms of the different stuff, though, I mean, I'm very visual. So when it comes to something like Space Pew Pew, I'm thinking I'm thinking about Firefly and Galaxy Quest and Fifth Element, Spaceballs, Monty Python, all that other stuff, Grimfell, what's up, man? And all those different things, because I grew up on those. I love 80s stupid comedies, like Airplane's one of my favorite ever movies, Top Secret, like all of that kind of absurdity. But the thing about absurdity is, if you're going to write an absurd book, you better make sure there's a story in there, because otherwise you're just writing a gag book. And I need to, part of what I want to do and what I think I accomplish is getting some real depth into the characters, even if it's totally absurd. Just the name Space Pew, like, what you're getting when you pick up that book, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get a great story. There's the trick.
It's a lot of character focus combined with essentially an episode of Pitch Storm.
Kind of.
Yeah.
In a way.
With a lot more coherence than the rest of us, Paul.
And like any author, I have like favorite tropes, right? I love a good Lone Ranger type of trope. You ever see Airheads, the movie Airheads?
I haven't.
Maybe not. No. They have a band, and their name is the Lone Rangers, and there's this whole discussion about how you pluralize Lone Ranger. And anyway, it's good. You should watch it.
Fair. Okay. I have all about the movie recommendations.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, I like certain tropes, and like to have them in there. And for me, it's like, a lot of times it's movies. Movies are a big inspiration, just because visually it allows me to connect to a story. So, for Caretaker, if I thought of movies that would be, that inspired it, certainly The Matrix, certainly Constantine. I'm a Keanu fan. There's a pretty hefty, I mean, Tim, you probably noticed it just in the epilogue. There's a pretty hefty Constantine kind of vibe to William. So, and that's because, I mean, these are just movies that I love. So I like those, those stories and those characters. But when it comes to other stuff, man, it's I don't know, conversations that you've had, it's experiences that you've had, places you've been, whatever else can connect you into anything. But for me, it's like, I'm all about dialogue and just having a really good time, whether it's absurd or whether it's more serious, like Caretaker, and you have to throw in some dark jokes and dark humor to break the tension. Like, I don't know. I just have a great time writing either, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't want to. Oh, sorry. Go on, Isaac.
On one hand, you have Airplane. On the other hand, you have Constantine.
Yes.
How do you manage jumping between those two modes? does it take you a while to get into it, or do you like? Is it snappy for you?
Honestly, I would say snappy, but it kind of depends. Like it depends on the day. I don't like to juggle multiple projects at the same time. So I like to be working on one thing until that one thing is done. In terms of writing, at least. And so if it's a short story that gets all of my attention from start to finish, it's done, it's out. Now I can move on to the next thing. So yeah, I mean, in terms of switching back and forth, I lean heavily on music. So a lot of times, depending on what I'm listening to, will pull me into a certain mood. If I'm trying to write something more serious, if I'm trying to write something that's got some violence in it, I do need a head. It's out of reach right now. Very sorry. So it just kind of all depends on, I can pretty much sustain a mood. When it's the absurd stuff and the comedy stuff, I just genuinely love writing it. Like I just love being an idiot on the page. It makes me so happy. When it's the more serious stuff, I'm trying to really make sure that I'm connected to where that story is coming from. And that allows me to be the storyteller more effectively.
Fair. Do you find, I don't want to take us too off track with this question, but I hear a lot of writing gurus. I'm going to call them that almost pejoratively because I hear this so often. And I clearly, you and I both, I think, have similar feelings on this. I hear a lot of people say, movies, books, very different mediums, don't take your cues for story or for development or for basically anything from movies. And to me, I drink in what I get from those visual mediums. I think,
for sure.
But do you find is there anything you need to watch out for when you are transitioning from movie or film or TV to book writing that you have to be cautious about? Is there anything you would still caution against?
I mean, to like a general person, or am I just thinking of the way I create?
Yeah, both. I mean, to you and then to anyone aspiring to do this.
Okay, so
because Tim needs advice.
Yeah, exactly. I'm leeching off of you right now, so
it's all good. So to me, wow. All right. So yeah, trying to find, I guess that whatever that reference is. So if it's visual media, and I'm thinking of movies like Constantine or something like that, and I'm trying to be like, all right, I want this story like this. I want to make sure that that's not too much of an influence, right? That I'm just remaking it. But the elements that I enjoy about that kind of story or whatever, okay, we inject those like into the story. In other ways, I think for me personally, the separation has to be more in line with what I'm reading instead of what I'm watching. I have to be very, very careful about that. So like for The Caretaker, I got a lot of very early on comparisons to Dresden Files, Jim Butcher, which I have not read. And when somebody said, "Oh, this is a lot like, have you ever read this? It's like quite a bit like this." I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Like, I'm never going to read Jim Butcher now because I don't want that influence to just tug me in a certain direction. I got to make sure that I keep it pure in my imagination for what I'm doing." So
right.
That's the only thing. I don't have that problem with movies because even when I'm writing or I'm thinking of a story, I'm watching it in here as a movie first.
Yeah.
And then when I write, I just describe what I just saw. And that's generally how the words come out.
Fair. I like that. Yeah. If anything, it's harder to steal from visuals in writing because people visualize what we put on the page so differently,
Right.
And if you're too precise, you almost you end up flooding the page with visual description and you don't actually get to the character and all that you were talking about.
Right. And I work hard to limit, to really just not throw in the exposition. I mean, even just the way my stories start, they start just like you're in it, you're in the thick of it, figure it out, pedal to the metal, like off you go. I don't like starting slow and giving backstory, and that's just not how I work anyway. So like,
does that very well.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty much in and like, all right, off you go. It's just like the roller coaster ride where they're like, everybody's strapped in, fine, 60 miles an hour, go.
Yeah. My kind of story. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that kind of pace. So I like to write it. I like to, that's, I don't know, it's just comfortable for me, I guess.
Yeah. So on that note, let's we're building up to a little something here for this show for you. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit more about your journey to where we are today and to what we're about to announce. So just tell us a little bit more about your publishing journey and the highs and the lows. Let's maybe talk about some of the lows, some of the things you've learned from to do better or not to do, and all the good and the bad that comes.
Let's get in the mud.
Yeah, let's have some fun.
So in terms of publishing journey, all right, like I knew there's a lot of directions I could go with this, but I'll try and just give kind of like a broad thing for me. I knew early on in my life that I wanted to write, to create. Like that was my favored creation medium, right? And so stories or whatever else, I'd have notebooks with half a story in it or some characters or like whatever. In the days where I was doing role-playing games, and so there was some Dungeons and Dragons stuff going on. One of the bigger ones was Vampire Masquerade when that first came out. So just like playing some of the tabletop stuff, it's storytelling. And I like that. I like the stories, like coming up with them. I would do when this is right around like the year 2000, I was playing Warhammer with a work buddy and 40K. And like, I would be typing up the backstories and everything for all the battles that were getting set up, like just because it was fun. Like it's a different kind of fiction. It's storytelling. So I've always had that. And then I got to a point where there was a particular story that I wanted to write, and I started in on it and was maybe 20, 30,000 words in. And I was writing from a coffee shop, and there was a small group of ladies that were right there. I think 3 of them. And they were talking about books and writing. And I was like, oh, like you got like, are you a writing group? just plunked down right next to me. And sure enough, they were. And so they're like, yeah, we're here like every other Saturday. So I was like, all right, I'm there Saturdays writing anyway. So on a day where they're there, we'll hang out for an hour and I'll go back to what I need to go back to. So we started doing some exercises and stuff like that, some writing prompts. And this particular prompt I pulled out of, I didn't set it aside because I didn't even think about it. It's a deck of cards called So. And each card is like, it'll say like, so what are one of your goals and dreams? Or so like, just prompt questions for journaling, for whatever else. And I pulled out this card and it said, so what is the oldest item you own? And I was like, all right, well, that's our writing prompt for the week. Write something about the oldest item you own. And I got home and like, I'm like, this is boring, because I could be like, it's a ring that my grandfather had maybe, or something like that. Yeah, sure. Like it's an emotional thing and whatever. But I'm like, I just kind of want to like break that rule of like write something about that and write something that was just fiction. And so I started thinking, what could be one of the oldest items in the universe? And what would it look like? And to my brain, I thought, the oldest things were concepts, the concept of birth, the concept of death, the concept of entropy, et cetera, et cetera. And then I got to thinking, well, how cool would it be to have a character that has to interact with an abstract concept that is in the form of a human, and like looks that way. And this was the beginning of that. I wrote like a 500 word thing just about this guy and the knife. It's pretty much turned into the first chapter of Caretaker. And when I read it to them the next week, they were just like, where's the rest of it? Like, you gotta continue this. Like, this was really interesting. So I was like, all right. And then I never wrote a book before. Never, nothing like that. I have no idea how to publish. So I just started watching videos and learning and all that. In terms of the writing, I just wrote it. I didn't go to school for writing or anything like that. Like I just wrote it. And then when I was done, I went through an edit on screen. I went through a pro writing edit on it. So just to clean up some of the grammar and stuff like that. And then I printed the entire thing out. It's 300 some odd pages. And I did a hand edit through the whole thing. At which point I turned it over to an editor and said, okay, like I've done as much as I can and now you're up. So, nice. And then at the same time that I had that book going, when I was writing The Caretaker, I was just a few thousand words in and had a conversation with my older brother and was telling him about it. And he thought it was really cool and interesting. And that was the last time I was ever able to talk to him. So we got off the phone, because he had some work stuff to do, and I was going to Las Vegas the following week. And he's like, "Oh, it's all good. Like, don't worry about it." He said, I got to go. I got to do this stuff. You're taking a trip. When you come back, call me and I want to hear all about it. And, about a week went by. My brother had a shoulder surgery scheduled, and it was on like a Friday. That Wednesday, I flew to Las Vegas. I was there for 4 or 5 days. And he went in for the shoulder surgery on Friday, and 15, 20 minutes under the knife, and his heart gave out. He didn't come back. That was it. It was just to clean up some scar tissue. And so that changed a lot for me, that I was in the middle of a fun project, like all these kinds of things. I was really close. Like I kind of wanted to start the YouTube channel, but I didn't at that point. And it was pretty much at that moment where I'm like, anything or everything could be gone tomorrow in my life. Like that was really terrifying. So I might as well start. And so I did. And then I was talking about psychology and writing on the YouTube channel. Ended up at the end of that year having 8,000 to 10,000 subs on the channel. And that's when I released the book. And I wrote the book with the main character as an INFJ personality type. And I use MBTI personality typing for the other characters to nail the interactions and how they push and pull against each other. So I just kind of dug into the psychology of this person is more emotional. This person is more of a plain, logical, pragmatic kind of character because those are the different MBTI types they are and how everything interplays. It was something I loved studying and I loved writing it in there. And sure enough, I had a bunch of INFJs on my channel buying the book. And I'm like, the main character is an INFJ. And they're like, oh my God, like this is like this main character straight out of my brain, which is really cool, that it resonated that way.
Well, I feel like us INFJs have just this ability to find each other.
It's got there's a thing to it. Like it's a thing for sure. Because we speak languages that like we speak a different kind of language that we understand, in a lot of ways. And it's very, very emotionally driven. So yeah, I mean, I had a pile of people that were really ready to support anything I would have written at that point because they were invested in my journey on the tube. Yeah. And then by the time I released it, I mean, it sold really, really well. For an independent release, it sold more than most people's just independent books that they're releasing. So like, I'll take it, and yeah, I mean, Caretaker was near and dear. And then I just kind of let it sit for a while because right after I was done writing that, I had to deal with all the emotions that I was shoving aside in favor of being distracted by writing a book. INFJ squad. That's right. Yes, you're an INFJ. Yeah, congratulations and I'm sorry. That was always my tagline for INFJs.
So good.
Yeah.
Yep, accurate.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, like that's where that book went. And then it was just kind of like a break. I was in a pretty depressed state, so I wasn't writing for a while. And then along came Joy-Jitsu, the nonfiction work that was published back in November, and Space Pew Pew just kind of hit me out of nowhere as well. And so it's nice to be able to get the Caretaker back in, more words. I redid the cover because I just wasn't a fan of my first cover, and all that. It worked. But I knew shortly after that I wanted, like, I would have done things differently. So, I had to learn that. I had to learn the royalty structure on Amazon and all this other stuff. And like, wait, I have to buy my book retail if I want it in stock? Well, that's crappy. So uploading the ebook, and then you start getting into things like formatting and all, like just everything that you do in the self-publishing sphere, you've got to pick up another skill. And that's not even to say how you market it, because you need to know how to do this stuff. So like, there's just a lot to it.
You got to learn to love catching on to new skills very quick if you want to enjoy this process. I mean, that's the thing. It is a lot of fun.
For sure.
Yeah. But it's also a lot of work.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, I mean, we've got a good amount of fun planned for tonight, but if you're ready, I think we're ready to
release the cover, people.
Let's release the cover for the Caretaker.
Woo.
There we go. That's the full thing right there.
Yep, there you go.
Walking off into that purple mist.
In the purple, that's right, the purple mist.
I love it. That has such a vibe, you know?
Yeah, it rings right up there with the main character. It's that's basically from a specific scene in there, you know, a pivotal scene. But yeah, I needed something that had that vibe that just kind of spoke urban fantasy, and so started. So I got to creating and all that kind of stuff, and then packaging up the extra words in it. And it was today I went on there and made them live. So the book is actually live, straight from my website. If you go there, you can get to, you know, davidbadurina.com or spacepew.space will take you there too. Yeah, I don't know. I got the domain. I was like spacepew.space. Yes, that's the domain I need. But if you go, any link for this book will be on there. The old one is still up. Everything again went sideways with reviews and how these things are connected. So I'm just like, Prakesh is going to hear from me again probably tomorrow.
Well, that said, I saw the live link. It is now linked properly to all the old reviews, right? As far as I could tell.
Yes, it is. But then, like, if you go to the link for the book and then you click on the Kindle version, the link for the book one changes to the old version and you can't get back to the book. It's very weird. Like, I've never seen anything like this on Amazon. And I'm like, well, breaking new ground. You know, that's what I'm doing. But it's all good. It's also up on Ingram, so it'll be on like Barnes and Noble, Apple Books, and all the things. That's how you got to do it. Just distribute.
Yeah. Well, speaking of reviews, let's show off the back too. Here we go. Full view, because I mean that's the way to do it. Some nice social proof. You know, look at all those beautiful 5 stars.
Yeah,
all those good words, all those yellow stars.
I know. There was one that just said free cheesecake, but I got that one off of there. I'm not going to be bribing people. No, it's they're just plucked from the review. You know, the book is sitting up there with 170, you know, something reviews, and it's 90 whatever percent 5-star. Like this was just a very well reviewed book. The people are huge fans of it. You know, definitely in that urban fantasy pocket, and so. You know, it's nice being able to release a second edition and have a large bank of awesome reviews. You know, to be able to just, you know, like, okay, it's proof positive. Like, this is a good book. So,
well, I like the balance of this cover. You've got that urban fantasy classic vibe for the front, but maybe tell us a bit about the back here with that rustic, you know, cabin feel.
Right. So locations are extremely important in the Caretaker, and so where things take place, that cabin is integral to the main character. It's a pivotal scene that appears a few times throughout the book, where he is on the darker one was quite literally a scene in just a rain-soaked alley, you know, right after he had you know, this big fight thing happened, and then he's there with somebody who's just like a very problematic companion, I guess is the way to phrase it. And so they kind of have it out in this alley and whatnot, and it just sort of changes the story. It's a very pivotal moment. The cabin you get in the first chapter essentially, and it sprinkles throughout. You know, but so with anything we're talking about supernatural, and we're talking about that sort of you know, it's our reality, but reality doesn't quite work this way. So locations can be anywhere in the Caretaker. But they are pivotal and important. You know, each scene I set in there was very, very intentional for it.
Including the epilogue from having read it. Oh my.
Yeah, for sure.
That is a fun setting. That's right up my alley. So
yep. Yeah,
you close it off very well. I'm excited for what comes next.
No, I appreciate it. I'm excited too.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, this is what a pleasure to get to reveal this pretty darn cool cover.
I really appreciate it. It's an honor. Like I said, the book's going to be all over the place, and I'll be posting it up tomorrow and whatnot. You know, just to share it. And I mean, a lot of people, it's been a few years since they read it, so I anticipate a few are going to be picking it back up to, you know, get back into it, and then I have more planned to get in and out of there.
Yeah. So everybody, all of you in the chat, go check this out. Go check out this amazing book. Again, I can tell you the beginning and the end, and I'm pretty darn confident the middle's going to hold up to the rest as well.
Yeah.
Also, do not fail to notice that David has patterned his entire lighting setup to match the color palette on his cover.
You notice that, right? That's Penny. She's my ball python. She's in there just chilling out with me. She likes the color changing lights, or at least I'm going to tell myself that I have a snake that's a fan of disco. So
that's awesome. No. Oh man. Well, okay. So we have some fun planned. Let's dive into a little bit of fun. First of all, fun question.
Yeah.
This is just so I know for a fact I noticed this and then I forgot about it. And then Isaac brought this up to me and I just almost died laughing because I thought, okay, I'm not the only one who sees this.
Okay.
So we just wanted to ask, any relation to let's make sure that do we have it here? There we go. Oh, come on. This is supposed to be full. Let's there we go. Nope. I do not want to be on the stage here. Come on.
Oh, you almost got it.
There we go. Beautiful. Any relation to Andrew Wilson from the what podcast?
The Whatever podcast.
The Whatever podcast.
I have no idea who this human is. None whatsoever.
He debates women who are not prepared to debate.
No,
so
I know the podcast
easily.
Yeah, no, I know the podcast, but I don't remember him like just from it. Like I've seen the. Yeah, that was the one.
I think that was my thought too. He just every once in a while he has a little cameo appearance where he asks some of the questions.
Right.
And you know,
so many times on X, I'm scrolling, I see him and I think it's you. I see you and think it's him.
Yeah, Grimfell sees it. So
I've never heard of that one. Zach Braff. I've been compared to Zach Braff.
Okay. Yeah.
But the big one, especially when I was just a bit younger and I didn't have so much of the face fuzz, was like Dead Ringer for Brendan Fraser. Yeah,
okay.
It was definitely a thing.
Without the facial hair, yeah.
I'd have to be smoother, and if it like my picture when I was like early 20s, and I look like Encino Man. So
you could get a fat suit and just sit in front of a fridge and look sad.
That's right. I didn't see that. I wanted to see that movie. Yeah,
I actually want to see that too. I don't know. I mean, he's just a fantastic actor. So
for sure. Yeah.
I didn't want to feel sad. I knew the fat Brendan Fraser movie would make me feel sad.
Oh man. Anyways, yeah, like I'm the same. I've never like I don't watch the Whatever podcast. It's just every once in a while you see little clips of it on X or on YouTube Reels, and the first time I saw your face, I had a double take. So when Isaac brought it up, I almost lost it laughing. I was like, yes, okay.
Look, I wish I had their viewership on my show. That's
you might be able to let
now you know what to do. Now you know
a background similar to him. Maybe try a little impersonation. I think he smokes sometimes too.
That's good.
So good.
I'm gonna get some pipe weed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so on the note of fun, why don't we jump into a little bit of a game?
Sure.
All right. Let's throw on Guess That Review.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah,
this is the one-star review guessing game.
Okay.
I have gone out into the universe and found one-star reviews for popular books. I want to know if you can guess what review belongs to what book.
You ready to go?
Sure. Let's try. Chat, I'm gonna need you to do this for me. All right, bring
chat, feel free to pipe in.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The writing, while I'm using in light, is immature. I think there's no need to anything about themselves. Wow. Okay. Oh, so I've got choices. I've got a Hitchhiker's Guide, Catch-22, or Good Omens.
By those guys.
Oh,
those guys.
Man.
I didn't want to put both their names in there. It'd be way too long.
Yeah, no, it's by those guys. I'm gonna go with C. To me, I get the vibe that is a Good Omens review.
Chat, what do you say? Let's see if the chat has any. Okay, we got A from Saffron there.
Anybody else? How many of the chat agree with the review?
Well, we'll find out once we go to the next slide. Yeah, there's the dream review right there. There is no meaning to anything. The characters don't change or learn anything about themselves. That doesn't sound like a David book. Some of the ideas are clever, but they don't go anywhere. A for sure. We're seeing a lot of A's here.
A lot of A's.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Let's see
Well,
if they're correct.
Let's find out.
It was A. Oh, there you go.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Hitchhiker's
Galaxy.
That shows
Nothing
what I
happens
know.
in this book. Absolutely nothing happens.
Yeah. I really thought the Good Omens, like back and forth, may have been the key on that one, but well, say la vie. There it is. It's Hitchhiker's Guide.
Oh, this reviewer forgot to bring a towel.
It's been a long time since I read Hitchhiker's Guide. Holy cow!
Yeah, I've never read it. I really want to.
I barely
read Hitchhikers.
I haven't read it. No, I love the movie. I just haven't gotten around to the.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. What do we got? Okay, here we go.
So, utterly boring, long-winded, full of itself. The characters are boring. This is not sci-fi. It's so boring and confusing that it makes me want to put my finger through my eye to my brain and swirl it around.
Dang, bro.
So is that A, Foundation by Isaac Asimov, B, The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, or C, Dune by Frank Herbert?
Wow.
Is that not a great review or what?
That is like, I wish I had a review like that. I'd market the hell out of that. Which book is
the most eye swirly?
I really feel like it's Foundation on it. That's a lot. Foundation's a lot. I'm not as familiar with Left Hand of Darkness. Dune is a lot too. Yeah.
So we've got Jacqueline and Saffron and Will saying.
I know. I'm like,
man, you people don't like Dune.
Yeah. I think Dune is probably the better choice here.
Well,
I'm gonna go see Dune.
It's Dune.
It is Dune. Yeah. Yeah. I like Foundation was a lot, but you know what gave that away is that this is not sci-fi. Like,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's some dudes running around in a desert. Like we get it with worms.
Yeah.
It's basically that scene in Beetlejuice when they fall through the door.
That's fair.
Yeah.
No.
That's all of Dune condensed.
It's exactly. It's the abridged version of Dune.
And they're very confused when they leave too.
That's good.
Okay, Jesse. Sorry, this is just kind of funny. Yeah. Oh man, boredom is the mind killer. Isaac came up with the little taglines here, and I just died laughing. So
right.
Okay, here's one for you. Duty.
Oh, jeez.
1 star. This is probably my favorite.
Oh.
Neuromancer by William Gibson, Sphere by Michael Christian, or The Martian by Andy Weir.
They could. Oh man. Like, all right. My initial one is Neuromancer.
Okay.
That grabbed me first on this one. That's pretty tricky.
All right, chat. Do we have any guesses here?
Yeah. Wow.
It's probably a bit unfair.
We're
not getting into Dune, we're just acknowledging the truth.
Yeah. Savage. That's a good one.
William says B.
That was a good one.
William thinks that Sphere is duty enough to be duty.
I don't know Sphere, but I'm gonna say, like, do we assume that this reviewer,
you know,
if we assume that this reviewer is like has a certain flavor of the book, it would make sense. Michael Crichton would be one on there. Nah, I'm gonna go with my gut. Neuromancer.
Okay.
I think they don't like the cyberpunk thing.
It's the Martian.
No. Oh, so they don't like Matt Damon. That's what that was.
Maybe they saw the
Matt
movie.
Damon
first.
uses poop to grow potatoes, so I think the duty referred to the poop scene.
You see,
that's what we're guessing anyway.
I really should have made the connection. You're right.
I'm going to have to science the duty out of this.
Yeah, that's right.
That one cracked me up.
Nice.
Yeah. So there we go. A little more of our music on the back end from the
I like it.
Anderson brothers. Freaking awesome. Oh man. Anyways, we thought you'd get a kick out of that.
That's fun. No, that's good stuff. I'm not familiar with all the books,
to
but
have Jurassic Park in there, but I could not find a 1-star review of Jurassic Park.
That's
on Amazon
really?
or Goodreads.
Wow. I mean, kudos to that book then. Jeez.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. Actually, I'm surprised by that too.
Yeah.
No complaints. You would expect it given enough time.
I never read it, but I have seen some episodes of Barney, so I feel like I understand what's
going on.
Happening.
Barney is very similar. Barney basically
it is basically Jurassic Park, just with some kids.
Barney was in Jurassic Park 3, for goodness sakes. I mean,
was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
They're on the boat. Alan Grant
I
calls,
forget,
like,
like,
help, we're dying. And the little kid answers the phone. He's bouncing to Barney. He's listening to people getting in. He's like, hello.
I actually forgot about that. It's so
That's
true.
great.
That's awesome.
That is, you know what? There were problems with that movie, like some of the dream sequence weird, but that
Right.
You
aside,
didn't like the raptor that said his name? You didn't think
Right.
that was amazing?
That's one of the dumbest things.
Oh, yeah, Jesse throwing
Do you
out
know
the
why the
Matt
raptor said his name?
Damon. That's good. What's that?
Do you know why the raptor said his name in that movie?
What? No.
In the previous scene, he's at the lady's house. He's talking to a parrot. He's trying to get the parrot to say his name. He won't say his name.
Mm.
In his dream, the raptor says his name.
Nice. Yeah, there you go.
So very thematically, congruent
It
and
was
well thought out. And
thematically
just,
genius.
I like it. Yeah.
sorry, it was
Flawless execution.
so bad.
I watched that movie too many times as a child.
Yeah, I didn't. I stopped after the first one. My brother made props for the one with Chris Pratt.
Oh, so you never? Well, okay, that's pretty cool. Never mind. Forgot what I was going to say. That is pretty cool.
If you watch the first one, I forget which one was that. Jurassic World.
Yeah.
Jurassic World. Yeah. So my brother's a leather worker, and he made like gun holsters and stuff like that, and he got into prop work with studios. And so in that movie, if you look at Chris Pratt's butt, there is a horizontal knife sheath. He has a knife that's like right there on the crook of his back. That's my brother's sheath. And then outside the pen where they had Blue, the blue like Velociraptor, there's this giant pair of leather handling gloves hanging up. They look like half moons, like giant claws. And he had done those as well. There were a couple others. He's done other movies and whatnot too. Wow. It's kind of neat. And actually the little Lego Chris Pratt has my brother's holster painted onto his butt.
That's so cool. Yeah, no, I remember both of those. That's really cool.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah. Wow. See, I feel kind of sad on your behalf that you missed out on the childhood trauma that was Jurassic Park 2. Like The Lost World really messed me up as a kid.
Yeah,
number one was already enough. I think I've been told, I don't remember far back enough, but I've been told repeatedly by my mom and my dad that I used to be afraid of going to the washroom because of the T-Rex eating the guy out of the outhouse.
I mean, the first time I saw Jaws and then my mom threw me in a bathtub, that was a bad day. Yeah, that was a bad day. And yes, Rebecca forgot the Leatherman holder. He had made a Leatherman holder.
Oh, nice.
Holster as well. Yeah. No, I believe me, I get that.
Oh, but that second one. Anyways, yeah, let's not go there. But that is really cool. That is really cool to have someone who made the props for some of those movies. Yeah.
He did stuff for like Hot Tub Time Machine.
Nice.
Like there were a couple others, in and around all of that work. But the Jurassic World was a big one. He had like cosplayers calling him from different countries, wanting the exact, like, make it exactly like it is in the movie and stuff like that. Just a real weird peek into that whole like scene.
Yeah, that's wild. Oh man. Okay, so how are you feeling, guys? What do we think? You got time for maybe another one or two deeper questions, and we can dive into some fun pop culture? What are you feeling?
Whatever you feel like doing. I'm your guinea pig.
Guinea pig time.
All right. Well, let's go into a little more of the your process. One thing Isaac noticed, and I mean now. You're at the epilogue again. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but I was really fond of that epilogue. But really good dialogue in there. But Space Pew Pew, and I think I've heard this from a lot of people, even more famous for a lot of fun going on there. So tell us a little bit more about just your process for nailing dialogue and any advice you would have for anyone trying to do the same, especially with a lot of characters, and stuff happening on the side.
Right. Okay. So. I'm always like a little reticent about just offering writing advice because I'm like, who am I? But I do have a knack for dialogue, and I do have a certain way that I approach it. So just maybe if I share that, like if that also works for somebody, cool. As long as it gives you ideas and stuff like that. But I'm not going to tell you there's a right or wrong way thing. Mm-hmm. Just how I do it. But the main thing for me is trying to nail. It's these little notes of color within the dialogue. So like you can have two characters that are arguing back and forth, And you said this, no, I didn't say that, and you're a so and so, and oh, you're going to call me a so and so, you're like whatever. So you're developing like that kind of dynamic or rapport, or whatever. So one of the things that I enjoy doing is whatever I would throw into straight up unquoted exposition, I just have the characters referencing it in the course of an argument or a back and forth. So as they're going back and forth arguing about one thing or the other, well, now he's going to bring up something from 15 years ago and only allude to it. And then he's going to react, I can't believe you're bringing that back up, so on and so forth, because that gives a certain type of depth to those characters going back and forth. And it's just a little nod to, there's a lot to their story, that this argument just kind of like would highlight if they're starting to throw in little things, just like you would, in a typical argument with somebody that you've been in a relationship for a very long time. Inevitably, something from 8 years ago is going to be brought up. Like, I'm sorry I left the toilet seat up, and I know you fell in, and it was a bad evening. But, so like these little things that you can throw in. So I don't have to explain their background. I don't have to touch on it in any kind of a narrative way. I'm just going to have them do it in their toxic back and forth, as two characters that can't live without each other and can't stand to be around each other at the same time. So for me, all of the dialogue is about those relationships. It's about highlighting how certain characters act and react and everything else. I use the dialogue to tell the story and to color the characters, I guess is the main thing. And I think it works. Also reading it aloud. And if there's any spot where you feel like it's not perfectly smooth, the reader, as a reading it, will think that that's not perfectly smooth. So I make sure when I read and I read aloud that it flows really, really well. And it just sounds like I'm telling a story and I don't need to add a he said or she said to clarify anything.
Yeah, good point. Because nothing is worse than losing track of who is speaking.
Right.
In the middle of
right.
That. Yeah. Which sometimes mean you haven't nailed a unique enough voice for that character. But then sometimes it just means, you haven't given enough cues for them.
Yeah. I mean, in Space Pew Pew, it's easy because Toshiro's all caps. So like, and I also like,
you are our first guest.
There's other parts as well. I don't know if either of you made it far enough to get to Boom Boom. But he's my violent capybara commander. Right. Yeah. And, I have this capybara civilization. Like they were just like, in ancient history thrown on a planet. They just ended up reproducing like crazy, developing intelligence. And all of a sudden they have a society, and they're guarding one of the most mineral rich planets like in the universe. So, they end up developing a society structured around organization, war, and everything else to protect the resource, like, stuff like this. So anyway, I thought one of the fun things that I wanted to do was anytime a capybara character is talking, there's two of them that have like lines in the book. They only ever speak in sentences of 4 words. And it was a blast to try and condense their dialogue down to make it funny, where just every sentence is precisely 4 words. So like it seems a little stilted the way they talk and everything else. And then I thought it might be fun in the second book as a gag to have like the capybara's internal monologue or maybe him journaling. And it's just like beautifully written prose and like everything else, but he only speaks with 4-word sentences.
That's good. Yeah. Extremely long-winded, eloquent,
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
On the inside, and then
like impressionist painting style, like,
so
yeah. Yeah.
I love those little touches, finding those little creative touches.
Right. And like, you don't have to plan the entire story out and the entire history of your characters to just have them mention something that they would know. It's an inside thing. You're privy to seeing their relationship in such a cool way in that moment. Yeah. Logan, I appreciate the boom boom love, man. For sure. I got boom boom stickers coming. Where he's got a little bubble and all he's saying is your violence is bad. Yeah.
That's fun. Here's another one for you. Mm-hmm. We touched on modes of creativity, but here's a thought. This relates to, going back and forth between styles, but just even new books. How do you keep yourself fresh, so to speak, creatively? How do you prevent yourself from reusing the same and you mentioned you use some tropes, so there's nothing wrong with reusing some of those central themes and core tropes. But how do you make sure that every new thing you do is unique? How do you keep that fire alive?
So for me, when I talk about the tropes, it's not something intentional. Like I'm going to write a story and it's going to be a Lone Ranger / save the cat or whatever. Like that's not how I would ever go about it. Yeah. In fact, like I outline and like, I don't even a 3-act structure. Like what even is that? I don't do that either. I write the story and I write the arc in a way that it makes sense. And as a result, it's not, there's not a predictable framework to my stories. And, because I'm not just doing a mapped out story to follow the arc this way, then follow it this way, then follow it this way, because my writing is kind of all over the place anyway. And so I just tell the story and I make sure that I hit my marks within, and I make sure the tension builds in some and reveals in others. And then there it is. What's up, Luke?
This was great for me.
That's good. So yeah, I mean, like I just kind of, that's the best way I can say it, is just tell the story.
Fair. Yeah. It is fun. I mean, I think when I was writing my first book, I had, I had heard about the 3-part arcs so often, and I ended up giving my book 3 parts. But does it look like what a 3-part arc? No, not who cares.
Right.
Because so much happens, and even when you're talking about depth, depth is something that really you end up adding as you go. It's very. I've seen this a lot. And there are people who can outline. There are the people who write 40,000 word outlines on one extreme.
Oh my gosh, that was the most absurd thing anybody ever said, and I'm like, man, bravo.
Yeah, kudos. That's
a book. Yeah.
And then there are the extreme pantsers, and that's totally okay too. But then
for sure,
you find that balance, a little structure, but. I kudos to those who have the depth right off the bat, but then I talk to too many who have 3,000 pages of notes and not a single page of draft.
Oh wow.
I've seen that a lot. People who
really
spend years on background notes and never, they find it in them to start the draft, and it's
scary. I was one of those guys. I had a lot of stuff prepped and I never wrote anything because I wasn't quite ready.
Interesting.
And I finally said, you just got to bite the bullet and make a mistake.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely collect ideas. So when I have something that, that's kind of nagging at me that I want to write, I will do something like I'll create a mock cover for the story. I'll write a couple of notes and I just kind of keep that aside. So I've got a visual thing. I've done this with like, just, these are books that or stories I just want to write at some point. So I'll just design that front piece for it, throw it in a folder, just in my folder structure for my writing stuff and everything. And then, maybe I'll do some notes on it in Ulysses or whatever, and just kind of save it in like a pieces and parts thing. So I know when the schedule allows and when I'm done working on like a bigger project, I can dive in. I've got a visual representation. I've got a breakdown of exactly, kind of what I was doing. And then off it goes. Like, then I can just kind of jump into it and write it. But I have a lot of ideas that I want to write right now.
Yeah.
And they're not leaving me alone. And it's very irritating right now.
It's really annoying when you're working on the current thing. Go away.
And for Space Pew Pew 2, I there's a companion book that I really want to write for it to release them at the same time and do that one under a pen name.
Full length novel as well, or
what's that?
Full length or novella or
no, a handbook.
Oh, a handbook. Okay.
Yes.
I heard companion book.
So sort of. Sort of. So like my idea for this whole thing is at some point in Space Pew Pew 2, the main character Alex is going to come across this ancient Earth book. And so I'm going to write the ancient Earth book, which is a book for like just in our present time, throw it on up there. And then as Alex in Space Pew Pew 2 goes through and finds a book, well, you can go get that book.
Yeah.
The book that he's like digging through. Yeah. So just like stuff like that. Like, and this is one of the cool things about being an indie is you can play with stuff like this.
Yeah. You go the extra mile, you can, find new mediums.
Yeah. That's why like I do the trading cards and like all that kind of stuff, because like I could just are you kidding? Like whatever creative outlet I want that's like in support of this, like sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Flip this open really quick. Yeah, and then I mean, exploring a little bit off of that too. Any final thoughts on Isaac touched on this a bit, so we don't have to dwell too long on this, but the branching back and forth between because you've done nonfiction now, you've done two very different forms of fiction. I mean, urban fantasy to satire meets
straight
comedy.
up sci-fi absurdity.
Like you said, you do one thing at a time. I'm saying this because I'm very much kind of on the cusp of doing the same. I'm going from very not grimdark, but certainly dark fantasy.
Yep.
And I'm on the cusp of a very tangentially connected story, but really in a different world. And it is meant to be just pure absurdity, pure fun, younger characters. It's just my imagination on crack, right? And
right.
Cocaine Bear meets my weird.
I love it. Absolutely. Yes. 100%. Yes.
And like I've written 2 chapters so far, so I have a good sense. I think I can change the style, but then every time I switch back, and so I'm same as you. I don't think I've put it on the burner because when I switch back to dark fantasy, suddenly it stalled me getting back into my daily writing habit, right? Because it was just such a different part of my brain,
I can't do both. Like I can't be writing back and forth on both. And it depends. I mean, my comfort zone is absurdity and comedy. Because I love the storytelling aspect, but I just really like to have a space where whatever zany idea pops into my head, I can just shove it into a story and it's going to work because there's loads of zany ideas in them. So like it blends in, it really depends on where it comes from. But like the absurdity for me is just like kind of home. I just feel like I have a real knack for it, to put characters in weird, situations, come up with bizarre stuff. Just like the AI, which is modeled after Clip It from Microsoft, Office 95. Like he literally pops in and it's like, it looks as if though you're trying to murder people. Would you like some help? Like that kind of, so like I'm throwing like all pop culture, everything, I'm throwing everything at it. And to me, that's like this, like, look at this giant sandbox.
Yeah.
Like it's awesome, especially the way in Space Pew Pew, I link back to Ancient Terrans, which is us being idiots on the internet right now today.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the culture and everything that they have far into the future and far away is based on poor interpretations of the dumb stuff that we did right now, which makes it just really fun.
It's a creative way to give your own commentary on what's going on in the world today.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I have an entire chapter where
world building.
I have an entire chapter where Toshiro the alien he's just ranting about Monopoly because they're trying to play Monopoly and he just doesn't get it. And he's like, it's like this shit, like the houses are even as big as the ship is. Like he was trying to just like understand it, like in a Sheldon Cooper sort of moment and just like, lost it and stuff like that. But like, I love doing these things because pop culture is fun, and when we get to dig into it and throw references into our books or whatever, the ship's call sign is a play. It's 8675E09. So like, there's your Tommy Two-Tone reference. Like, and I do this throughout there's just like tons of references in the books.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
But it's fun. The serious stuff is fun too. I just have to be in a different type of mood for it.
In the right, mind space and
music helps. Rereading, your last chapter, whatever the last thing you wrote was, doing a couple light edits to just sort of sink yourself into it and then continue on. And it seems like when I do it like that, it's a little easier to switch. Honestly, like the harder time that I have is switching when I'm writing something in first person. And then the next thing I'm writing is in third.
Interesting. Is okay.
So like, then I start getting a little like, I'm just like, how do I write in third again? And it takes me just a little bit of time to to get my groove and get it up and going. Third to first, not as bad, but then I just end up in like some character's head, like hello, you know. So it all depends. Greetings,
Eric.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that kind of starts to answer what was going to be my next question, was then whenever you're in a slog, just in general, not just, you know, not creatively. You don't strike me as the kind of person who has any shortage of these wild zanky.
Be surprised, but yes. Yeah. I mean, I tend to have some in there for sure.
We all have the ups and downs, but just the writing in particular. And we kind of talked about this, you know, when I was on Mirth Quake too. So I kind of know a bit where you stand on this, but just to hear more. How do you push through the slogs? How do you get back in the groove if you've taken a step away from writing in particular? Yeah,
so it helps to consider lots of different things writing, to be honest. And so, you know, if I'm sitting here, if I'm driving and I'm in my car for like, let's say an hour and a half ride, like a 90-minute ride somewhere, you know, a lot of times the radio's off, I'm in silence, but that story is going bonkers in my head, and I'm watching it like a movie from different angles with different characters, different scenes and settings and whatever else. It's like I'm watching the scenes that I'm going to want to add in at some point. And then
daydreamer.
Oh, big time. Yeah. No, my ideas are coming. It's usually like 100 miles an hour, just 100% of the time. That doesn't mean that I always have the energy to put stuff down. You know, but like I have no shortage of really dumb ideas that I want to write, like right now. You know, like this guy that's Chick Kincaid, like, and he's like a hired assassin, and he just wakes up one morning and he's got the head of a giant chicken. Who doesn't want that story?
I think we need that.
He's got to go on his mission. Like he's got to be, they're sending, you know, he's got the thing in, like, where's my next mission? Like my next target. And he's like, you know, like talking to his partner, and he's just like, well, I woke up this morning as a chicken. And then they just go on like it's normal, you know. I don't know. So I have stupid ideas like this. I've got a barbarian rom-com kicking around in my head right now. One that I am ready to start writing some stuff. I actually think I might pen a short story on it.
Nice.
So I have a really, really good hook for a short story involving a hurdy-gurdy and a goldfish and some jam bands. So
very
what's
fun.
the personality type of that one?
Not so much.
Have you ever, so writing short stories and things like that, have you ever submitted anything like that to like a writing contest or anthologies, or you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I mean, Space Pew Pew started out as a short story writing contest.
Okay, yeah.
So that the genesis of that one was there, and I took that short story, turned it into the first 3 chapters, essentially, and then just kept writing because I was done with that short story, and I was like, oh man, I really want to, like, I want to keep writing these characters. You know, this was like too much fun. So then just starting to come up with the other stuff, and then like all, you know, world of its own. I wrote for Came from the Trailer Park. I have a story that was in volume 3 for that one, The Ballad of Esmeralda Calhoun. I loved writing hillbilly horror. That was just like super fun. So, you know, but like, again, I can play off of tropes and stuff like that. And even that story it's a coming of age story. It just so happens to be with the hillbilly swamp witch of Black Belt, Alabama, hunting down Chester on his 18th birthday, and his uncle Floyd, who's a total degenerate, who's like taking him out into the swamp to make him a man type of thing. Like, you know, and it's all about the relationship and everything else. But like now I get to do like a creature feature. Like, oh, hell yeah.
That's awesome.
You know, all right, whatever. So like as long as I find the idea compelling and I think I could really dig into it, I'm putting it down.
That's fair. It's something that a lot of people encourage, especially newer authors, to do. And I think a lot of people who start younger really dive in. It's probably one of my regrets. I bless your heart. Yes.
Yeah. It's from Esmeralda. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, I mean, I just hear bless your heart in general. And I think back to my,
that was a very threatening, bless your heart.
It was a very threatening. Yeah. That is straight out of the story.
That's
yeah, no, I mean, look, I have a lot of fun with this kind of stuff. And, you know, I mean, you see with Space Pew Pew, like now I got people just writing me and I don't know who they are. And they're like, Bob Nog Gognog, man. I'm like, all right, this is really cool.
Awesome.
You know, being able to just put something, and it's like, it's just totally absurd. I'm just coming up with letters that sound dumb, you know, but like, sure, let's call it Euclidean. Yeah. Okay, good. Now I got a language. Perfect. You know, like this is the way I work. But it works, you know, as long as you have a real story underpinning everything, it doesn't matter how absurd you get and where, like there's an arc. So
there. No, that's awesome. This is a bit of non sequitur. This is just really funny to me. And I'm thinking of it because we just talked about short stories. And that is pretty cool that Space Pew Pew started from a contest. I got to judge finalist stories for a writing contest just I guess that was just this week. And they finally announced the winners I think yesterday. And I'm so glad that one of the stories won because it's one of the ones I got to judge. Like you judge cool. in contest with each other, and you choose between the two, and you get feedback on both.
Right.
One of the ones that won. Oh, it has to be. I'm excited for Space Pew Pew, but you've got some competition because this was the funniest thing in the written word I have seen in years.
Excellent.
And it was, so I won't I'll maybe tell you about it afterward.
There's a few, and like the thing is, like the comedy writing is weird. Like when you're getting into the comedy stuff because it gets judged very harshly.
Yeah.
If a joke doesn't land, like it really doesn't land. You know, if the gag doesn't land, if people are just, you know, if they're tired of, you know, more than 3 Uranus jokes, like, all right, you know, so it is tough. And there's a few other, you know, authors that I see that kind of lean into the thing. And it's like, you know, you just have to be willing to be absurd, write an absurd story, have it be your sense of humor. And the people that like it will attract to it. There you go.
Yeah.
Crimpel liked it. It was all about the Bob Nog Cognog. Yep.
Yeah. No, that's the thing though, is humor writing it's like just same thing with even just stand-up comedy, right? It's tough territory to step into, I think, for a lot of authors. I was reading another piece recently, and even one of the stories I judged more recently where the comedy totally fell flat. So that is something where I get a little nervous when I'm writing it.
Yeah, trying to be funny, you can usually tell.
Right. You know, and I think by having some kind of mix involved is really important too. Like in Space Pew Pew, I've got these scenes where they're just repeated gags about, you know, taking medication and then ending up with a second rectum, right? And so like it's just like this thing that and they just talk about it casually, like this is a normal thing that could happen as a side effect. You know, or whatever else. But like if I can get you to chuckle at some of the stuff I'm doing in there, whether it's Alex and his bumbling attempts to woo somebody who's just like she's great, but she's like a little bit of a psychopath. Like, you know, if I can get you to laugh at points in the book, but then at other points where something just serious and bad is happening to a character, you're upset, then this is great because now I'm taking your emotions and we're not just doing ha ha ha. We're doing ha ha. We're getting some emotional. So like it just pulls the depth of the whole thing. You know, it stretches it all. And so the bigger peaks and valleys in comedy, I think, is a great thing. You should have serious moments. You should have moments that are very human, characters upset, characters crying, but just make sure you've got the gags that can end up then just shoving it way up into the air again, and having a great time.
Throw us in a hole. You got to be able to pick us back up.
Yeah. And I think it's important to have all of them, you know, because that's when you're going for a real ride. So, and that's what I tried with Space Pew Pew, is just like, you know, at its core, this is a story about this guy and his relationship with an android that he's been hanging out with for 30 years. So like that, their relationship underpins everything and all the absurdity, and, you know, just like a family, like you have, sometimes you're not speaking to a sibling or whatever else because of the arguments, and you're throwing things at each other's faces or whatever else that, you know, that may have been out of bounds at some point. Like that's how I want to treat the dialogue and their interactions, because now it feels like a family and it feels like you're part of the crew when you're reading it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
No, that's awesome.
I'm excited to dive deep into Space Pew Pew.
There you go.
I was about to say the same. I mean, it's
Bob
been for ages. So yeah, Bob Not Cognog.
Yeah. And look, it's a fast read, and it's that kind of thing where it's like, you don't have to do serious all the time. Every once in a while, it's okay to watch Airplane.
Yeah. Now, on the flip side, I haven't given urban fantasy a fair chance. I just edited a chapter for someone, urban fantasy. It was pretty good.
Yep.
Done a few others, you know. I don't think I've to my knowledge, I don't think I've ever made it through a full urban fantasy book. For what maybe I just haven't tried that many.
Yep.
I tried some Jim Butcher, and it just wasn't for me. To be honest, I know a lot of people will be upset at me for that. It just, wasn't for me. But
I know.
Magic Treehouse.
but now I'm reading like, again, I got to read the epilogue for this,
Yeah,
and the intro and the opening. And I'm like, okay, yep, this I could do, So
Right.
maybe it's just a matter of execution or different style. I don't know, but I've got two pretty good looking books on my TBR now. So
that's all right. Yeah, I mean, with Caretaker, it's different. I definitely make more of a point to hook you at the end of chapters, is to just to keep the story really rolling through.
yeah,
And
It's kind of noir, right?
yeah, you could fairly say that. There's a little bit of a thriller. It's a little bit of a mystery. There's certainly funny parts throughout. It's an exploration of relationships, and it's supernatural with incredibly powerful entities and an entire world just, right underneath the fabric of ours, that is also just complex and has turf wars and everything else. And that influences humanity. So, it gets pretty deep into some of these themes, and particularly themes of fate and everything else. I mean, remember, I was writing this in the immediate aftermath of my brother passing away.
yeah.
So I had a lot of questions in my own head, and writing this book was a way for me to explore loss, explore some of the memories that I had that are, I mean, there's things written into that book that were moments between me and my grandfather that you wouldn't pick up on if you read it. But like, it just ties to certain scenes. So, I definitely put a lot of myself, into that, but it had to be multi-layered for a reason. And I had a lot to work through. And so, the notion of, do you control your fate, was really fascinating for me to explore, and I, it's always that question. Like, if you knew what was going to happen to you, would you have a choice to avoid it?
Yeah.
And if something is just written and that's it, like, what does that look like? So these themes are really, really deep in Caretaker. So it does that, but also, you're just running around doing fun stuff, having super violent fights once in a while, people hunting you and like all this other stuff. So like, there's just a lot to it in there.
Yeah. Nice. I've talked to some authors who, by their own admission, and it's not just being younger, they'll even say their lives have been relatively uneventful. And yet you'll read some of their writing and it's incredibly insightful into some very deep, creatively deep and immersive, but also painful or evocative, themes from human experience. And I always find that really impressive. Right. I personally, it's something I work on, and I find myself now branching out into areas of experience that are new to me, and it's kind of fun. Writing becomes your playground. Your imagination becomes your playground to experience what others have and you haven't. So that's great. But you can kind of tell. You can kind of tell when you're reading a really impactful story where it's the author's heart just bleeding onto the page, and you feel like you're experiencing it alongside them.
Yes.
Those stories, you get something different out of that,
Yeah. I had, I was very fortunate. I had a really good reception to the book when it first released. And, again, a lot of people that found me through the circle of INFJs and MBTI. So I'm making videos about that and videos about imposter syndrome and just anxiety and just how overwhelming things can be as an INFJ and as that intuitive person. And, the introversion thing, of course, like, and all that. And so, in doing all of that, it allowed me to really connect to a certain audience of people and hearing a lot of stories, knowing how, like, we think of these things and how they are. So to have that sort of as a backup, I'm able to tell stories. I'm able to hear other people's stories. All of these things just expand what you're able to write on. And it's like, you can write about being in space without ever having been in space. Yeah. You can write a toxic relationship. If you've never been in a relationship, you're probably going to get some things wrong. But like, you know, you
As
like
long
you
as it's
can
fun.
research and you can do these things like it's, you know, it's all good, or you just end up with hand wavium, and that's fine too.
Yeah, I by no means think you need, and that's my point, is some of the best writers I've met that will tell you they've had none of the experiences or know nothing about
Right.
what they write about, except that they either researched it or just have some sort of really impressive creative intuition, you know? And
Yeah, but you know, I don't know if I fully agree, but like here's the thing too. There are certain sets of emotions that all humans will have at some point,
yeah,
right? We all experience fear in one degree or another.
yeah,
Unless there is something cognitively, like you're born without that part in your brain, like the people that can just bare hand up, like, you know, El Capitan or whatever. You know, he's just got a bag of chalk and he just kind of scales it like
Those
Spider-Man
people are
without any.
psychopaths.
Yeah, I'm like, there's something in your brain was
yeah,
like, danger doesn't matter, you know. But what I'm saying is like every human has these sets of things. We understand what it is to be isolated or alone. We understand loss to some degree. You know, we those things are very common. And so if you have a story, even if you didn't experience something specific that you're writing in there, if you lean on those pretty universal human emotions in terms of the scene and what the characters are going through, you're
mm,
going to resonate.
yeah,
You know, because you're not writing just something that, you know, like, okay, maybe I don't know what it's like to be in Italy on this like particular island or, you know, whatever else, having a conversation with a chef in a small, you know, or whatever. Like
He's
I
got a
can
rat on
research a
his
little bit
head.
of that, understand what it would smell like and feel like.
yeah.
But in terms of the dialogue or the interaction back and forth, I'm hitting on fear or love or sarcasm or things that we universally understand.
Well, just like you using, you know, universal personalities, it's the principles
Right.
behind our interactions that, you know, we can all learn.
Right.
And once you do and tap into that, yeah, it takes a
Yeah.
good story to a whole other
Well,
level.
and I have a main character that's INFJ. It's one of the foils in the book is INTJ.
Mhm.
And I worked my good friends, like we worked together. He helped me run my karate studio. I'm an INFJ, he's an INTJ. We worked wonderfully together.
Hmm.
But there were definitely times where his his thinking, pragmatism, logic, whatever that was, and my more idealistic, broad-stroked, emotional point of view were like, you know, napalm in a match.
Yeah.
So like, you know, but you learn to appreciate somebody like that. And I'm like, well, this is a really fun relationship I have with a great friend of mine. And it's very understandable what's going on because of our differences.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, now that I'm writing a character like this, now I know how this character should talk to him to annoy the hell out of them and still progress the story. So, like, there you go. That's the experience, you know.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's great.
Well, and that's a good point too, is sometimes small things that feel inconsequential in our own lives can actually turn into huge things in our stories.
Oh, for sure.
You draw the principle out of it and it can.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's worth studying your own life in a little more detail. I think some of us
Oh, absolutely.
have
Like,
treasure troves we don't tap into.
like here you go, right? For Space Pew Pew, which is like I call it space opera. I mean, it's space opera. It's just like really absurd. But even in there, I've got a you know a character who's like he ends up getting drunk, right? And so like, and then he's got it like, and then there's the shame of being sobered up
Mm,
after you've been drunk. Like
yeah.
this is a book that's a space opera with talking capybara commanders and stuff like that. But like a lot of people can kind of understand the shame feeling of doing something really stupid and your friends calling you out on it. So that's the hook in the book. Like there's your emotional hook. It's ridiculous that it's getting drunk in like some far off future universe or whatever, you know, on a Mad Dog 2020. But like the character part of it was spot on. It can resonate with people. You ever make a stupid mistake? There you go.
It's awesome.
Yep.
All right, you have time for some pop culture fun. I think
Ooh.
Isaac has a little.
Before we do that,
Yeah.
do you have time to take a quick break and do a new segment brought to you by Nintendo?
Oh, for sure.
Wonderful. Tim McKay, bring up the slide.
The Mario Day one, right?
Yeah, it's
Oh.
Mario Day.
It
Today
is
March
Mario
3rd.
Day.
I
Oh
decided that
man,
we should have a Mario Day segment here. So I'm going to
That's-
ask you a couple of yes and no questions.
That's
and I want to get your
horrifying.
honest opinions on these things. Are you ready?
all right. Yep, go for it.
Mario,
Like how do you want me to deliver this opinion?
yes or no?
Oh.
Yes. Yes to
Why?
Mario. He's the OG, like he's the dude. He's
Could
Mario.
you chow down on a Mushroom Kingdom?
I mean, it depends on the mushrooms. Too many of a certain kind, and yeah.
Did
But
you know
I
it's
guess
a real place?
I feel like I'm in there. What's that?
You know it's a real place.
What is?
It's real. You can go there.
What?
Japan.
Oh, Japan.
I thought it was just a fantasy thing, but there are people there. They live there. You can get
Apparently
tickets.
so.
It's really,
Yeah.
really cool.
I don't trust it. I think it's all AI.
Okay, you're in a desert, walking along the sand. When all of a sudden you look down, you see a Yoshi. It's hopping towards you. You reach down, you flip the Yoshi over on its back. Yoshi lays on its back, its belly baking in the hot sun, beating its legs, trying to turn itself over, but it can't. Not without your help. But you're not helping. Why is that?
Well, first of all, I'm thinking, how far would it go if I kicked it?
Interesting.
Just saying, because that's usually a thing, or if I jump on it, would that work? But also, if I just wait there for a moment, won't he just like flip up and come after me anyway? Isn't that how it worked?
Maybe, but he can't
Yeah,
get
I
it without
don't
your
know.
help. That's the whole thing.
Oh, all right.
So,
well,
answers, you would kick the Yoshi.
I could get
Okay.
like a stick or something and just like try and, is he trying to kill me?
No, he's just dying.
Oh, well, then of course I'm going to help him out.
Okay,
No,
good,
I thought it was coming after me to just like, I don't know, disembowel me or something.
No,
just like a
Yoshis
really
they
mean,
might try to eat you.
a really mean one. Like I'm still stuck on Jurassic Park. Like if Jurassic Park were Yoshis, like that's the vibe that I was.
Well, if you have the little embroidered knife thing from your brother,
That's
maybe
right.
Yoshi wants to kill you to get that.
Maybe.
Okay,
That's
last yes or no question.
Sure.
Is your answer to this question going to be no?
Oh my gosh.
Oh man. Maybe.
Good answer.
I'll put a pin in that. Yeah, I'll have to come back to that. I'll have to come
Thank
back.
you for
Troll.
joining us on this special segment brought to you by Nintendo. Make Mario go away now. We're done with him.
So good. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I mean, on that note, fun fact:
Good.
Mario. Apparently, I tried to figure out where this was ever stated, but it is official Nintendo lore that Mario was born on March 11th. So why today is Mario Day? Because it is. Today is
His
officially.
mom
Mario
went
Day.
into labor today. It was a long, difficult.
It was a
labor.
long, it was a long labor. Right. There was a
We're
there was a
pretty sure
plumbers
one of the
strike at the
games was
time.
released today, but I don't. Anyways, but fun fact.
Yeah, I mean that was formative for my upbringing. Mario and the
More pop culture.
Nintendo.
Now, you and I chatted about this, but sorry. But
He was
let's-
talking about his
let's-
formative years, and you just jumped in there.
It's all
Oh.
good.
I didn't hear a thing. Sorry about that.
It's fine. No. I'm just saying that Mario was a big part of my upbringing, just like the Nintendo. Like one of the it was Mario and Zelda. Like those were the Duck Hunt.
I wonder if it lagged on my end because I didn't hear any of that.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
We're all good. Go for it. Come into what's next.
Okay, well, next
Got
thing
this.
we were going to talk about was Wheel of Time. Now you said no Brandon Sanderson at all, right? Do I have that correct?
I have no idea who he is, what Wheel of Time is, what it's for. Never heard of it.
Yeah,
It's
so
all
that's
about
so
this
perfect.
wheel. It kind of spins like this. It's got ladies in it. They're
Makes-
really bossy.
Makes sense.
It's really
Yeah.
long.
It's really long.
Yeah, I made. It's funny. So this is something I've seen a few people. I've seen some of your posts on X do really well when they touch on more pop culture or something outside of the author sphere.
For sure.
John A. Douglas, another author who, now he had a presence before putting out his book. But it's fascinating to me. I've always been nervous about touching on anything pop culture. And not because I don't care, or it's just I came into the sphere on X with a focus on writing, a focus on the craft.
Right.
And the very first time I made a post about A Wheel of Time, it kind of blew up. Not huge, but huge enough. And I thought, all I said was this was a big series for me, and I get why people are upset about the show because it's just another adaptation. There's going to be things that are different from the books. I
For sure.
very much can relate to some of the frustrations. But it's just interesting to me from, you know, a social media perspective, how powerful it can be. I mean, to me, it instantly connected. My follower count jumped up. Sometimes I think we neglect opportunities when we get a little too narrow. That was a thought I had related to this.
For sure.
Curious what
I
you
mean,
thought.
yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's important to, you know, I'm a big proponent of this, is like those, you can't just, as an author, you can't just be sitting here marketing to the same circle that you're just marketing into and you're sitting in anyway. You know, we can talk to each, like, for the community aspect of what we have going on, where people are starting channels, we're interviewing each other, we're, you know, and we're enabling that creator circle to expand a bit, pull in some more people, like more of this kind of stuff gets traction. But at the same time, that circle of people that you want to pick up your book, fellow authors on X should not be your primary market.
Yeah.
You know, so you need to do something to attract somebody that is outside of that circle that you're just hanging out in. For me, when I first started, and how the Caretaker got, you know, did as well as it did, is because I created a channel talking about psychology and being an INFJ, and just like, you know, the anxiety, the mental health issues, imposter syndrome, like all those different things. And so I'm attracting all of these people looking at these videos because that's a very broad circle. Lots of people are interested in MBTI. If I'm starting a channel where the only thing I'm doing is talking about writing, well, I don't have that larger audience right off the bat, or I'm just getting drowned out in it all. So I leveraged that topic to get people close to me that were interested in those things and would be interested in a main character that was written that way. And as a result, when it came time to launch the book, I'm not just selling it to some author friends. I've got this entire group of people interested in psychology, didn't even know there was a book going on, you know, or whatever else. And they're like, oh, you're writing a book. Oh, that's cool. Like, when is it, you know, when is it out? And they want to support me because like they got to know me on that channel just as an authentic, like, you know, I mean, it's like shared a lot of personal stuff on there, you know, and everything. Read my brother's eulogy on one of the videos, you know, and I'm in tears, but like, I wanted to make sure that I was being vulnerable, and that people that maybe were in a similar spot and feeling a similar way, at least have somebody out there that's just like, yeah, I see you, you know, I'm going through it too. I just decided to turn on a camera.
Yeah.
On the poster there, the lady on the right who's kind of hiding with the black hair.
Yep.
What personality type do you think she's hiding?
Yeah, that's ISTJ vibes right there, man. Yeah, can't trust them.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah, she looks like she reads hard sci-fi. Like she looks like she enjoys Foundation. Yeah, for sure. That's like an Asimov fan.
Celine/Lanfear. Actually, one of the characters I thought they did very differently from the book in terms of introducing that character, but very, very good depiction. I was happy. Nice. And yeah, kind of same as Chuck said here, you know. I have a question about adaptations in a second, but yeah, you know, a lot, especially a series this long. This is a 14-book series. The average length, the smallest book in the series is about 650 pages. The average length is 800. The longest is, I think, 1100 pages.
Wow.
You know? So
I really like the first book. The second book I started and it was slow starting. I saw how long it was. I was like, oh man. And I will read them someday.
There you go.
Well, so my question off of that too, though, is if you could get a movie or a show adaptation of any of your works thus far, which would it be?
Oh shoot.
I would like to see Space Pew Pew.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that would certainly be a blast. But like I'm so near and dear to Caretaker, just in that it's, you know, in both, there's definitely just characters I would want to see. You know, it's funny, Jeremy, who was in earlier, I'm not sure if he's still around, but he's like beating the Space Pew Pew drum for me. Like he's been just really nice about posting it and posting kind words and everything. And he's always tagging Luc Besson in it, who directed The Fifth Element. And he's like, this is your next one. Like, this is the next one that you need to be working on. And one of the compliments I get on my reviews across whatever it is that I'm doing is that I people can see it, like they can watch what I'm writing. And so, it makes sense. Like I feel like either could adapt. Space Pew Pew would be a blast to see on a screen for sure.
Fair. Another one. Have you kept track of Daredevil at all? Were you watching?
I never got into Daredevil. I'm hearing about the show, and they're like, it's really good for TV show and stuff like that. I am in the world of Severance right now, and
Severance.
Totally obsessed.
That last episode was really boring, though.
Oh man, but it answered some questions, and then said it was only 37
questions.
About her past,
where the tube was from, tube was from.
That was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure, she was sad. She was sad. She had like a mean old lady sister. I assume that was her sister.
That was her aunt.
Oh, her aunt. Okay.
Yeah. 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 Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, or in that case, Sissy. Yeah.
That's right.
No, I mean, I just and the show is like the work it's important, right? It's mysterious and important. But it's like every time I'm watching another episode, and I'm like, I still have no idea what's going on, and I love it, and I want the next episode. Which is, I think there's great writing in it. I love the concept of it, the mood, the cinematography, and it is like top notch. Severance is it's so good.
The last episode felt like Ben Stiller was like, I really liked filming Walter Mitty. Let's go somewhere cool like that again.
Yeah. They were in Newfoundland for that one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. That was Newfoundland. They apparently the cinematographer had been there for something else, and she was like, this is really good. Like, this would be a great place. It's just kind of cold and isolated and sparse. It's what a great show. Still the goats
saying, where's Mark?
Still trying to figure out the goats.
Shots fired from Jacqueline over here.
Yeah, exactly. I know. We're watching it for all these little details and we watch it with monocles or whatever.
All right, so this is a lot of people whose opinion I trust telling me to watch it. That's what I'm hearing here. I haven't seen Severance yet.
Severance made me really angry when I first saw it because I had an outline that was almost identical to it.
No way. Yeah.
Same basic idea. They did it in a much cooler way than I could have done.
But
I had this exact same idea of playing with the idea of identity, what you remember, you're a different person inside and outside. And
right.
So I was pretty angry, but I'm very happy to see that the story works.
No. Well, have you ever had the reverse where I had this? Luckily, I wasn't too far into the process yet, but I was already writing something for the sequel, a book that I'm working on right now. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned the idea to a friend. And my friend said, oh, kind of like this. And it was something from something we both love in fantasy wise. And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me, because I just never made the connection.
Right.
Clearly there was influence. Now, it led me to make a huge tweak that to me just takes it in such a cooler direction than I was going. But if a friend hadn't pointed that out to me, right, just how easily I slipped into something that's been that influence, like it was way too on the nose. Yeah. And I just wouldn't have known.
I mean, in everything to some degree, it's derived from something else that's out there. People are like, the stories get retold, and that's fine. Like, as an author, you just want to make sure that you've got your mark on it. Yeah. And as long as you do that and you're not just like rewriting something that you love that somebody else wrote, it's allowing yourself to have that personal spin on it that can be tricky, because we get into this pattern of like, well, we have to write and it has to be kind of what, again, like I have to stick to the structure. I don't want to mess up the structure. My 3 acts, I have to stick to this. And like the characters, it needs to resolve this way, because it's a hero's journey. Like, this is great if you want to put these things together and tell a story that you want to tell and everything like that. But I always feel like, I want to allow my mind the freedom to just go completely off the rails if I want to.
Yeah.
So, however that looks like, whether you're playing with timelines, which I do in the Caretaker, not time travel, but timelines and things like that, to just shove you in and out in different angles and views of the entire story that's going on. Like, well, that's something I can do. Sure, it's non-conventional. Doesn't matter. This is just me. So
yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, okay. On that note, then, because those were the kind of the what's going on in the world, things we had, we were thinking about. We were thinking about Wheel of Time, Daredevil, Mario Day.
Right.
We had our little X outage today to keep.
Oh, that was fun. Yeah.
Fun cyber attack.
Yeah. Well, go figure.
Don't know what's going on there, but I blame Steve. I hold
definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Seems like a Steve thing to do.
That scene from Airplane where he unplugs the runway and he's like, oops, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. So books. Just some final thoughts. What are you reading right now? What recommendations do you have? I'm
painfully slow in terms of reading through a TBR pile. I have been working on, because there's a lot of other things that are going on, and I had an entire publisher shenanigans going on. So really since the first week of January through trying to get 2 second edition release, all this kind of stuff, plus writing on my own, and, all those other things, plus work, plus the kids, it's hard for me to sit down and get through the book without thinking I probably should be doing something else. That being said, I'm in the middle of Nick Horvath's Sledge.
Nice.
And it's brilliant. And I absolutely love Nick. I think he's a super cool dude.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate to have him on Mirth Quake and just really enjoyed hearing about how, he hits the garage, he freaking pumps his weights, and then he goes and he rage writes. I'm like, this is so great.
Battle of the Badasses.
Yeah, that was
really
super
cool.
fun.
I
Man.
disagreed with one of them. I don't remember which, but I think Jack Reacher versus Batman would be pretty even.
Interesting. Yeah.
Jack Reacher is
you were among
right kind of person to take on Batman.
I can see that. I think we were definitely all just Batman fanning on that one for sure. The one we just had on Storyteller. So I do the Storyteller Smackdown right every other week, where just drag 4 people on and we just do a battle royale of the characters from 2 franchises, and we just did Harry Potter and Percy Jackson. That was super fun. And so in the end, it was Annabeth versus Hermione. And
fun.
Hermione eked it out, but it was really close. We had just a great time.
Harry?
What's that?
Who killed
Annabeth?
Harry?
Annabeth took out Harry. Yeah,
Annabeth.
She had a whole the whole invisibility cap. In the first round, she was invisible and she shanked Snape. So he was done in the first round. And then she dispatched Harry, got dispatched Ares, and then ended up against Hermione.
I was excited for this replay, and now I'm really I meant to watch it, and I was going out with friends later that night, and our plans got shifted earlier, mostly because the place we wanted to go to closed earlier than we thought. Right. So I was so disappointed when I had to leave. I thought I'm missing Harry Potter versus Percy Jackson. Cool. And now I'm hearing this nonsense.
William was there. He's like, Annabeth should have won. I know. It was really close.
You should do Jurassic Park versus Tremors.
See, that's good too. I love Tremors. No, our next one, not this Friday, but next Friday, we're doing The Last Dragon versus Big Trouble in Little China. So
Big Trouble sweeps.
I can get Shonuff versus Lopan. This is just we're gonna have a good time.
Sounds fun. Yeah, those are some pretty good matchups.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you on the TBR pain though. Trying to. Yeah. It comes in waves. It comes in waves. I had an 800-page book I read that at the end of last year. It took me 3 months to get through that sucker, and then I read a 400-page in 2 days, a few weeks ago.
Oh wow! Shoot.
There's no rhyme or reason to my reading speed. So,
yeah, I mean. And I'll be honest, if I'm going to read something and I'm reading it just for just for the satisfaction of the story or what have you. Yeah, Trinity that was a good one. She was on the panel too. So, if I'm reading something for pleasure, a lot of time I'm just going back to Lovecraft or Poe, because to me, those were I grew up reading that. I love both of them for different reasons. The words are pure poetry. In terms of Poe, and then I just love Lovecraft's just creative madness. So like those two are very formative for me, and I'll often go back to just pick up a page or two of a story or whatever else to get through it. So I tend to like reading little things in little bites like that just to, help. But I also I read a lot of nonfiction, and everything else, or I'll read opinion pieces. Like you get stories from people. There's just always some way to engage your brain with all this stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome.
One of my favorite books ever is, I think this is called Rats of New York.
Rats of New York?
It's like this journalist followed this extermination crew for like a day.
Right.
And everything he observed. And it is insane.
I mean, it sounds good.
These rats are.
I like it. Yeah. And I've done some of the, I've done some of the, forced to read some of the classics and stuff like that. I still absolutely hate Catcher in the Rye. I will always hate Catcher in the Rye. I've seen the discourse about The Great Gatsby.
I was going to say, I've seen people trashing on Gatsby today.
Yeah. I'll read Gatsby every day, all day, if I just don't have to read Catcher in the Rye one more time. So that's how much I just so there's some of those I've read, a lot of those were the school books, the school projects. But when I was reading for fun, I read a lot of Robert Asprin. Do you know who Robert Asprin is?
No.
Okay. So he wrote
medicine.
He's I know, I think not spelt the same. So he wrote these serialized myth books. And one of them is called Sweet Mythery of Life, Mything Link or something like that. They all had this name in it, and they were just quick reads, pulpy, the super cheap trade paperback, and he would just write one after another, sometimes same characters, sometimes different ones. But he's shoving out this 40,000, 50,000 word novel, each time. Maybe not even that big, to be honest. They were just really quick reads. But I absolutely loved it. Piers Anthony was another one. I grew up reading Piers Anthony too. Didn't age well. He was kind of a perv, but there's that. But those books,
in the indie space, not the indie space, the author space.
The author space. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I get people are like, well, your writing reminds me a little bit of Neil Gaiman. I'm like, well, just as long as it's the writing, and we're it's fine. Yeah. But there's a lot. I don't know. There's a lot going on with all that, I suppose.
Sure. Oh man. Well, how are we feeling for time, guys?
Good. If you got something else, and I'm happy to, like I said, happy to guinea pig.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the conversation. This is nice.
You've been a great guinea pig.
Yeah. I do. I you know what? I practice.
We've injected you with drugs. We've subjected you.
That's right. Eventually, I'll be a talking capybara, saying only 4 words at a time.
Yeah. Oh man, no, it's been a pleasure having you.
Of course,
this was a very fun way to do our first show. So
look, I love it, man, and I love seeing you guys do this kind of stuff. I think you're both going to be great voices, in the indie community, and it's
hang on,
we're all helping each other out. So
did Jesse just call Great Expectations tripe?
We've got a battle about to start here.
Nice.
Really?
I will say some of the classics they throw at you in school. That's the thing about this discourse that I can get behind. To me, it's not about which one is better or which ones are good, which ones are bad. There are definitely some that just feel trumped up, and maybe that's just it's all subjective. But even just the methodology.
So I was never forced to read anything.
See, there you go.
I read whatever I wanted.
Yeah. You lucky.
I would have been good without Moby Dick. I don't know, 9,000 pages of this dude looking for a fish. I'm good. I know it's not a fish. Let's see. There was Tale of Two Cities for some of that French attitude. Okay. I remember the Simpsons joke about do you know the Simpsons joke about Tale of Two Cities?
Oh, tell me the Simpsons.
So there's this whole concept of if you had a bunch of monkeys in some giant warehouse and each of them had a typewriter, that just according to the odds of probability, one of those monkeys is going to write a Tale of Two Cities word for word. Right. So it's just how it mathematically it is plausible. Well, possible, not plausible. So anyway, in The Simpsons, Mr. Burns has this giant room of monkeys pounding on typewriters, and he pulls the paper up from one of them and he looks at it and he goes, "It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times." And he's like, "You stupid monkey." Like, it's just a funny joke. The monkey actually was getting it right. He just made one little spelling error. Yeah, no, it's a good one.
So close.
So close, monkey. No, I mean, like I've read those, but yeah, we probably could have been engaged better with different types of books, or things that we just wanted to read, instead of just being forced on classics. Like, there's a place for them for sure, but we
were lucky we had the balance. We had the balance of the classics in class, but then they brought us the Scholastic Book Fair,
Yeah.
So we could dive into
exactly. Right, going around with your little newspaper thing, marking down the ones you wanted and all that stuff. Yeah, I loved those.
Glory days.
Love those days.
Glory days.
No, I mean, look, it's important. Having all those books is, I just really feel like they could, help. They could help younger readers in particular, or just get into a groove for reading things, if they expanded that a bit. And it expanded the style of fiction and everything else. You see this with a lot of indie publishers right now, where it's like back to this conversation of, well, what do men read and what do young men read?
Yeah.
Young boys want heroes, so we're kind of getting back in a lot of ways to these pulp novels with like a young man as a protagonist who goes through something heroic and it's a positive message in a good book, and that's it. It's just like a great story. And it's nice to see that sort of thing come back.
Yeah. And that's I'm sorry.
Pulp is great.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like the best part about going indie isn't to drown out everything else that's coming out these days. It's just to do something different and have the freedom to do that without being afraid that you'll be excluded by default for wanting to do something new or different, for not having to follow the trends.
Yeah.
It's liberating.
I mean, that is just how I've done it.
Yeah.
So like I'm me. Like if you either get the humor or you don't get the humor. Yeah. And that's it. Like I write it for something that I would want to read and I just really enjoyed, and then I just have to hope that enjoyment comes through. Shakespeare's another one. It's kind of useless to teach Shakespeare to 17-year-olds. I think they should wait until after
see a play.
After you've had your heart broken a couple times. Shakespeare takes on an entirely different sort of tone. So
that's fair. I had a very good grade 7 drama teacher. He made me appreciate Shakespeare. If not, there's always the one or two teachers who make you appreciate something that you otherwise just would not. He was that for me with Shakespeare. But even then, any other teacher I ever had, any other time I encountered it, was kind of just, it lacked that depth, because people are telling you this is amazing, and they're giving you probably the worst possible examples of Shakespeare's work.
Right.
And you're supposed to just believe, you're supposed to trick your mind into thinking this is quality. Not everything that comes out of one of these pivotal figures fingers on the page or out of their mouth has to be treated as pure gold.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think that's tricky, man. And something like Shakespeare, it's like you want to be able to understand, read. It's like reading the Odyssey. Is it really appropriate to throw that at a 13-year-old or something? I just don't think so. No. I think the value in it comes like at a different time, and let me ask you guys, like, what's a book that was very formative for you in terms of either your outlook, like on life, like what's a book that changed you?
That is a really good question. One for me would be, so it's the second book in a series, but the book itself is called Merlin, and it really is following a retelling of Merlin from Druidic lore perspective. So it's set in Rome. The Roman Empire is essentially leaving Britain around this time, and you have the mix of Celtic and Roman and ancient British.
Right.
And oh my gosh, I won't, without spoiling the actual book itself, the process of grief depicted was
interesting.
One of the most powerful things I've ever read. And that stuck with me. It changed the way I see so much of life and so much of healing and what that looks like. You go through some really tough times in your life, and that's the thing, is some of these stories actually do prepare you for it, maybe more than
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And for me, it was that story that set the stage for really how I view loss and process it in a lot of ways.
Nice. Yep. Interesting. Isaac, what about you? What's a book that changed you?
For me, changed me.
Yeah, just changed your outlook, or set Isaac on a slightly different path.
Yeah, so probably what made me want to tell stories was probably The Tale of the Swamp Rat by Carter Crocker.
Okay.
Which is a book that nobody's ever heard of.
Right.
It's just about these animals in this swamp in Louisiana, I think, and there's a drought. And it is, to this day, I reread it a couple years ago. I was afraid it wouldn't be as good as I remember as a kid. It was better.
Oh, nice.
It is, to this day, the best written book I've ever read. Everything about it is perfect. The sentences, the dialogue, descriptions of everything, the chapters. Right. It was beyond perfection. It was the guy, Carter Crocker, he worked for Disney. He wrote episodes of the Winnie the Pooh TV show.
Oh, neat. Very cool. Yeah.
He wrote this thing randomly.
Huh.
And I think he's written one other book. I should read it. I haven't read it, but yeah, Tale of the Swamp Rat. It was fantastic. It's hard for me to describe.
Nice. No, I mean, it's nice to have books that are like that for you, and it makes you wish that when we were in school, those were the type of books that you got handed. Yeah. The ones that could change your outlook on something or something along those lines, but weren't just straight up, like propagandized books and stuff like that they're injecting, like in a lot of schools now. Yep. Yeah. Narnia was another one, very formative for people. Yep. For me, it was Atlas Shrugged.
Okay.
That was the book that just pointed me in a totally different direction. And it's like, I still love it. Love it to this day. Love to go through it, love to read it, even just like certain chapters and whatever that are some of my favorites. But yeah, that book made a difference. People say, well, Ayn Rand, her prose wasn't great or whatever. Her dialogue was blah, blah, blah. She's very boring. It's like, if you understand what that book is for and what it does, it makes sense. It's not even my favorite of hers. It's just the one that sent me in a different direction.
Had the most impact. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that's the thing. That's what's more tragic about, students going through the process of reading some of these books, and that's their first exposure to the world of fiction. Yep. And they leave with this bitter aftertaste. And what you're robbing them of is these transformative stories,
right.
The experience of something that really moves you and turns you into someone new because of that visceral experience you have putting yourself in someone else's shoes through a story.
Yeah. I mean, I remember reading the books that I enjoyed. Like, I remember reading, that Myth series from Robert Asprin. I remember reading On a Pale Horse from Piers Anthony. Like, I remember the moments that I had with those books. I don't remember like slogging through freaking Moby Dick. Like, there's just no way I was going to appreciate it at that point. I wanted to read cool stuff about dragons and sorcerers and vampires, and, whatnot. So.
And David here, I saw for whatever reason, it never gave me the option to put it up, but I saw that you said Stephen Lawhead. That was the author I was talking about who wrote the Pendragon cycle, Stephen R.
Nice.
Lawhead. Oh, will always be one of my favorites. Yeah, well, definitely my favorite books. Would be
right.
Those three. And then, yeah, look at this. We're getting a full load of great suggestions here. See, I don't know. Having read the Iliad and the Odyssey, 15-year-old me would not have enjoyed that at all.
Yeah, no, that would have been torture. Yeah, for sure.
Just
15-year-old Jesse Fain liked Odyssey, but did not like Great Expectations. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, nice.
We're getting mixed signals here.
Ooh, trouble. Yep. Incarnation. That's David, that On a Pale Horse is hugely formative. I've had people compare parts of Caretaker to that one for sure. So Piers Anthony was pretty formative in the way I tend to write when it's a little more fantastical.
There. I really like this comment from Trinity.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's always been a mix for me. There's what you get out of it and the change, it inspires in you. But then, my love of fantasy began really at a time where I needed that escape.
Yeah.
And it's not just about getting out of, or it's not about running away from what you're going through, but it's about giving yourself and others the freedom to believe, one, that this isn't the way it has to be.
Right.
I think that to me is the biggest part of escapism is giving yourself the freedom to explore something else. It's about freedom. Right. It's about not being, it's about no longer feeling trapped where you are.
Yeah.
And giving and creativity, the beauty of it is that it allows us to explore other options for how this world could look.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, and that's one of my favorite things too. In terms of Caretaker, that was just, how does this world look if I play with the psychology of everything? And see what it's like, and that was different. Like I said, that book was therapy for me. So being able to explore those things in the safety of a supernatural fiction story, like a speculative fiction story, that was perfect. Like, it's exactly what I needed for that. So, that's what our writing can do. And believe me, if you're writing something and you feel that connected to it and you share it with others, you will get people that feel just as connected. And that's just one of the awesome things about being able to communicate with written word.
Yeah. So I don't want to, slam you with a deeper question. We're already going pretty deep, but do you find it tough? Because this is something I think about. A lot of my first book, some of it's more like some of it's not meant to really be for the reader to work through, but a lot of it was me working through some stuff. But now I'm writing the sequel, and there are different things I want to explore, different things to work through. But part of me worries about this genuinely. Continuity with that first book, what I was working through then, I'm not really working through it anymore. It's like, I found it's not that I found the solution, and some of these things will always be there, and they will all always be there.
Yes.
But
are you worried that it'll be tonally different?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Is how do you, if you're not working through the same things anymore, does it mean you're betraying the story? I don't know.
I mean, I think it means the character is growing into something different, and then it's just a set of new everything to explore. So like you did my epilogue, right? For Caretaker. At the end of that, at the end of the primary, like the main book, there's definitely like a resolution, but there's a lot of consequences, and the consequences aren't front and center just as I wrap up in the last chapter. And so that epilogue and things moving forward end up being the consequences that the main character has to deal with, but now it's a changed main character.
Yeah.
They've been through something that has great consequences. So just by saying that event exists, it means that it was a pretty big event. So it's fun I think it's fun to change the character and explore it. I like messing, in book 2, I'll be messing a little bit more with that unreliable narrator, which is fun to do because you're in first person. And so, just to be able to play with, the aftermath of everything that the main character went through, which was deeply psychological and emotional. So like now I get to really dig in to some different emotions, and he's going to be behaving like a different character as a result. I think it's great.
Yeah.
It's definitely like Star Wars, the first Star Wars and the Empire Strikes Back, they're very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Tonally, structural wise, and
for sure.
Fun to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it depends on the story that you're telling. So
yeah. But and this is exactly the kind of heart of the question. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there is something to that. I think a lot of that is just it's just being connected to your childhood. If you're writing a younger character, like it's helpful to remember when you were an idiot at the mall with teased hair, or whatever. So like, I think it does kind of depend, but
at that point you write those characters the best.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I guess like, I mean, it really does. It's, you can write any character, put your, again, this goes back to just my thing where it's like, I try to hit on the broad, main set of emotions that every human tends to go through. So if I'm writing somebody who's just like, a 28-year-old swashbuckler, and I'm about to be 50 in May, at least like, well, what is that person going through? Well, they're going to understand lessons of humility. They're going to understand what ego is.
Yeah.
They're going to understand shame. They're going to and those are things that we all understand. So I can put a character through that, even though if I can't relate to them generationally.
Now, somewhat a non sequitur, but just because you just pointed it out, you have the maturity of a 50-year-old, but you do not look it every single time.
I know, right? I'm okay with that.
Time you say that, I'm like, excuse me?
Yeah.
I had to do a double take the first time you mentioned your age.
I don't really act like it either, so it's fine.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I know he's not 30, I'm going on 33.
Right.
But I'm like, so I know you're not that, but I know you're, okay, anyways, yeah, 50.
Yeah. My youngest son just turned 16.
That's so wild.
Wow.
Yeah, he's doing his driving test is tomorrow.
Wow.
So I'm like, well, that's fine. Just everybody in northern New Hampshire stay off the sidewalks.
Yeah, that's a milestone right there. Wow,
yeah, for sure.
Awesome. That's huge. Oh man. Let's see. Sorry, I was just seeing Jesse's comment here.
With every toxic relationship I've read. Yeah, I mean, like, you went through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. Yeah, like it's hard. I've had this conversation with people my back does say my back says I'm like 84.
That's your significant other.
Not having it. Certain parts of my body are just disagreeing right now, and that's my spine is one of them. Yeah. So I don't know. I forget what we were talking about, but yes, that is very accurate.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
he'll do fine.
Yeah. I think it was off of Jesse's comment. I was going to say, I feel like you hinted at it some, but I'm curious what you do when it comes to, real people, real situations, and how much of that you let creep into your stories.
Oh,
100%.
I mean, like there's elements for sure.
But no X's are named is what I'm getting at. Nothing like that.
No, nothing like that. Nothing so obvious. But definitely some hints in Caretaker to people that may resemble certain characters, or like inspired certain characters in a way. Space Pew Pew, like not so much. But at the same time, like the characters there's so many different relatable things about all of them, just in terms of really hitting on the relationship structures of them, that it's like it's still like it can all resonate, in one way or another. So like I don't pick out specific people, but definitely places that I've been. Absolutely. I write, Caretaker takes place in South New Jersey, in Philadelphia. This is where I grew up. Some of it's in the suburbs, which is where I spend a lot of my time. Some of it's in Atlantic City, which, I would visit all the time because it was just about an hour and 20 minutes from us. My parents would take me there for like weekends and stuff like that. So remembering all of these different sights, sounds, smells, the layout, all these different things, that really just helps me paint the world, Yes, good thing your car isn't blue anymore. Yeah. She's in the Caretaker in a weird way. Yeah, for sure.
That's good. Yeah. Now it was maybe one or two times where I caught myself maybe throwing in more than I knew I should. And it wasn't intentional. It's just some of it slipped into, just different experiences that have informed two characters in particular. And I had to step back and really explore the character in their specific context deeper. And it gave them a very different tone. Very fresh, very, very, they became someone totally new, totally different.
Yeah. I've gone as far as writing small scenes between two characters just to get a feel for what they would be like in a conversation with like somebody totally different. It's just not part of the book or anything. Like I literally treat it like somebody turned on their phone and they're just in a car, just having a chat about something. Because in that moment when I'm not doing anything that has to do with the story, they're just having a natural, like, like regular person conversation in a car.
Yeah.
But your personality comes through in those moments. And so I really had fun doing that, just writing this small separate scene, the two of them, and one of them's spouting off an opinion and the other one's pushing back, you know, and like they're enjoying each other's company, but like it's, you know, they're going back. And I'm like, this is super fun. Like I just, in this little piece that I'm not going to have anywhere in the book, I just got to know two of my characters in such a deep way in all of like 500 words. Like how cool is that? So, you know, all this kind of stuff is just, it's how you approach it, how you connect with it, and all of that, you know?
Well, Isaac swears by doing exactly that all the time. So
really,
What did I say? Interview my characters?
No, you write other scenes that you then some of them you cobble together into the final work.
Oh
some
my
you don't,
goodness! Do not do this. Do not do what I did. Do not do that.
Okay, so
much extra work.
So something in execution maybe went a little awry.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for getting those characters lifelike and real.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
But oh my goodness, it's a nightmare to edit. I was doing some today. It was pulling my hair out. It was.
That's why I just wouldn't
come together.
include
it. I'm happy.
Yeah,
but it's really hard. One time I interviewed a character kind of, you know, just on paper, and I started bullying him a little bit. I felt bad because he's like, oh no,
savage.
That's good.
All my characters are me. Kind of.
It's in some way.
They're all me. I mean, I don't put other people in my stories. If you're reading one of the characters, they're a jerk. That's me. If they're scared, that's me. If they're evil, that's also me. It's all shades of my personality. All the characters.
Yeah, things that you know very, very well. So like, it makes it great to write those.
Having read one of your books, we might have to take a break, man. That's so good. No, we usually get together about once a week, long before we even had the idea to do this, just chatting, writing, and then we usually take some time to write. Now, half the time we don't get to writing because we just end up having such a good time chatting about all of this. And but yeah, that's where Isaac is always telling me about, you know, the curveballs that his own process is throwing him, having written all these side stories. And I'm like, I get it. To me, it sounds like such a great creative, you know, tool to flesh out a character or a side story. And then I imagine falling into exactly that trap. They would all become my darlings and I would want to fit them all into a story.
Oh, I have hundreds of pages of things I'll never release because they don't fit anywhere.
Right.
Tragic. Because I know you're writing. I bet they'd be good.
Yeah, it feels really wasteful. I mean, I'll take little descriptions of things here and there, but I mean, that's a lot of work to comb through all those pages and find little nuggets, and I can only use this much of it.
I can't do it to that degree. Like I've had full on chapters that I've set aside where I'm like, you know, it was good. Like I think it would have been fine, but it's just not suitable for the direction of the story. So like I keep it, you know, because there's some good stuff in there. But like if I'm doing something just like the character back and forth, I'm literally just like writing a scene. And one of the characters is sitting down and a light goes on and he's being interviewed. Like I treat it like literally like I just interviewed my character in my own head. But like it actually it really did reveal some things about the character and just mannerisms came out, you know, and everything else. So like whatever works is a tool, you know, to get it done, to get you to, you know, write the characters that you want. Like just do that. There's no rhyme or reason.
Well, you said earlier, you know, you were talking about not being comfortable giving writing direction, saying this is how it has to be done. But that's why I love drinking and writing advice. Even if someone is bold enough to say this is how you should do it, just treat it all as tools, you know, take the good,
for sure,
the bad, put it in your tool belt and, you know, pull out what helps, you know, depending on the problem you're facing. You know?
I mean, I
edit and write at the same time. You know, that's exclusively what I do.
Yeah, right. It's pretty much my method.
That's what I edit like crazy. I just edited today. I edited like 4 chapters and I'm supposed to be writing and I have no regrets.
I do it like so if you imagine like a train, like 3 train cars, right? And like
you mean like 3X?
It's like not like 3X. Yes. But like 3 train cars, right? And like one of them has a number 4, one of them has a number 5, one is a number 6, right? 5 is the chapter I'm writing. 4 is done. And when I start a writing session, I'll edit a little bit of 4, reread it, jump into 5, and I'm writing 5. I already have 6 planned out, like with some details, like the beats that I need to hit, but like I'm not on it yet. When I finish 5, I go to 6, and then 7 gets sketched out. 5, I reread and edit a little bit, and I write 6. So like I just do this rolling sort of thing. Whatever chapter I'm working on, I'm touching up the one before, and I'm just zeroing in on the next one and a more broad stroke on the one after that. And so that just kind of allows me to let the story roll through, and it may end up going like, I know what ending I want. I know where I want to start in the beginning. But that middle stuff is like, it's fun. And it helps me not to have it down as like a finalized outline. This is what's going on in every chapter, because I just think the creative act of writing it would be less fun.
Yeah.
But that's just me,
I mean, I think you just described pretty much my process to a T, with the exception of a day like today, going back and doing, this was more because I'm far enough along in the book that I wanted to do a quick refresher of everything. And then keep going. But otherwise, my process, I go back a chapter, get a quick refresher, keep doing the one, start, map out a little bit more of maybe 1 or 2 chapters. Anyways, the flashlight pantsers unite. That's what
it is kind of the flashlight thing where it's like, you can, like, I can see that there's a turn up ahead. I'm not exactly sure what's after it, but like, I know what I got to do to get there, and I know I have to turn. So like, okay, cool. And I have more broad stroke beats. Like I'll have like, okay, these things would probably be in about the first third of the novel. These would be like right around that middle part. This one might come a little bit later. Like I know that those scenes are going to fit in some places, but like, I don't have everything solid around them, for sure, because I like the discovery part of it all. So like, I like to have enough mapped out that I know where the story's going and it'll be cohesive by the time it's over. But not so much that it doesn't allow me to just, I got a weird idea, it's going in, and so like, but it's easy to figure out.
Yeah. Oh man, it's a fun gig we got, isn't it?
It is.
Oh man,
for sure.
It's a blast.
Absolutely.
Love it. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think we've been going on for a solid 2 hours, 15 minutes. That's a pretty good first show.
I think so. This is a sturdy first offering. I'm honored to be a part of it. I really appreciate you guys and what you're doing. I think this is great. Another resource for everybody, another way for us all to connect. So kudos and much gratitude to you two, because it's not easy to drag authors out and onto a screen.
Well, I feel like it's getting easier. Luckily,
we're getting there.
Yeah.
I mean, that generation's coming up that's used to just like doing stupid TikTok videos. Yeah. So like it makes sense that you're going to see a little bit more of it. You may not see it from, the Gen X crowd, certainly not going to see it as much from the boomer crowd. So like it's good. The indie landscape is ever changing in terms of publishing and in terms of marketing and everything else. So it's just, keep doing what you're doing, stay on point with it. And like, we're all fine.
And we're fans. We love. I love watching Mirth Quake, and you just dive into the craft and Janky Submarine all the way. Of course,
Team Janky Submarine, exactly.
Yeah. So keep doing what you do.
In the chat has not seen Mirth Quake, check it out.
Yeah,
David does a great live show. It's fantastic. It's fun.
Super fun.
Books for sale. Buy his books.
Exactly.
What else do we need to say at the end of a show?
I don't know. I mean, depending where you're watching, links will be in the chat, and any that aren't or should be in the description. Any that aren't, will add. And so make sure you like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Make sure you go buy Caretaker. I mean, like, look at that beauty, right? Like, come on.
Gorgeous.
And Space QQ. If you need some wacky forward spacefaring
space capybara,
right? Like, there you go.
2 chapters of it. It's fun.
Yep. I'm doing I've got a fun live auction sale planned to do like autograph copies and stuff like that. So I will be reporting back to everybody on what I'm hoping is a potential new avenue to get some book sales for all of us. So I'm gonna guinea pig it myself and see what it's like. And then kind of go from there. So I'm going to be documenting that. Should be fun. We all need another way, man. Get our books out there and get our words out.
Yeah, whatever. Yep. Yeah, that's the great thing. We're all experimenting, seeing what works, and as much, kudos to those sharing, the things they learn along the way, so the rest of us have a fighting chance.
For sure, absolutely.
Man. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us for the first episode of All Caps Book Chat.
Really appreciate it. It was an honor. Thank you. And great stuff from you guys, really. I love this kind of stuff. I love seeing you do it. Can't wait to see you guys grow.
Cool. All right.